Hey, everybody, we're kicking off a brand new week on Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you? Did you have a good weekend? I hope you did. I did, that is for sure. And we want to say thank you for joining us for another week. Grant Cameron is going to be with us here momentarily, but I want to say thank you to everybody who had a great time tuning in for the roundtable on Friday night, and then for Michael W. Hall last night on spacedoutradio.com. And let's give a little shout out to everybody. Hey, Michael, how you doing? Hey, Lord of Land, thank you for coming on in. Middle Child, Brett, Lori, good to see you all here. Who else is here? Jules. Hi, Jules. How are you, beautiful? Hey, I want to say thank you to all your support and everything like that as I grab my eyeglass cleaner over here because, oh, God, I can't see shit right now. Hi, Renee. Good to have you here. Oh, let's give little Grant Cameron a phone call here, shall we? Shall we? Let's do this. Here we go. We're going to give him a call. Come on. Come on. Let's give this one a call then. Hey, Nuck. How you doing? Spookles the cat. Spookles the cat. Davey, how are you? I don't have my glasses on. Hey, Alan, thanks for coming on in. Hey, Chuckles. Ember, thank you. I know Bigfoot Michigan Rob's here. Hey, Pest. Oh, one of these days, Grant will answer. Oh, look at that. I could see.
Hello.
Grant Cameron, how you doing?
Yes.
There he is.
Not too bad. I have always hard time getting on here.
There he is, YouTube crowd. We got Grant fucking Cameron on the show tonight. All right.
There you go.
There we go. God, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. One big.
Are those things ready?
Oh yeah, they're ready. Hey, Paradolia,
okay.
Just so you know, Grant, since the last time you were on, we actually are now simulcasting on our YouTube channel as well, and we usually get around 100 people watching live here. So,
hello, YouTube. Hello.
Yeah, so they're all here. They're all hanging on out. They're already waving their Grant Cameron banners. So,
good.
Yeah.
Good.
You got some fans in here. Hey, Gaspar, how are you? Pest, good to see you here. Adnome, how are you, man? Good to have you here. Hey, redheaded Lisa. All right. So we're just getting ready for the show here, and yeah, we'll be going in a couple of minutes.
All the people who have no life like me.
Well, pretty much. Me too. That's why I'm here. One thing that I do have to say, Grant, is that one big change from the radio side to the YouTube side. When we go on break on the radio side, we are still hot on mic on YouTube. So we just gotta, yeah. You know. Hey, Audio Murphy, good to have you here for the first time. Thank you for joining us. Millennium, thank you for coming on in. Pest says, hey, Grant, I'm good friends with Betsy Platt in Vegas. We met you in Scottsdale a few years back.
Beautiful.
Hey, there's
Betsy Platt's got a nice house, I'll tell you.
Yeah, my buddy Mark Spender from up here. You met him at the Paracon. He's in the chat room.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and little Richie G, good to have you here. Yeah, it was a good show you had going on. Hey, Richie, did you play Skyhub's UFO video? I was trying to get your attention there. I don't know if you did or not, but we're about 2 minutes away, Grant, from launching here. Oh, man.
You got lots of friends there.
Oh, we got, how many people we got in here so far? Hold on, let's take a little peekaboo here. Just reloading. So far, we haven't even started. We're at 38. They love you. They love you. You got a lot of people out there, man, who want your autograph.
Yeah. Good luck.
That's why.
Everything's shut down now. You can't move now.
That's why when you go to conferences, people, if you've never met Grant before, he always has a fresh pack of Sharpies just in case.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
I hope you
see if there's any more conferences. It's kind of
I know, right?
Dangerous to run a conference now. You lose your shirt.
I know, right? I know.
The one I was going to go to in Illinois, as soon as she announced that there was going to be, they'd get a refund if it didn't happen, she didn't sell a single ticket.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah.
All right.
People are scared to go. It's not only the fact you may not get anybody, but people are just scared to go around and do anything anymore.
I know. We got to get over that fear. We got to get over that. All right.
And get hockey going.
Damn right. Hey, Insane, thank you so much for the super chat. Early and strong, just like that. Just like that. Here we go. 5 seconds, everyone. Let's have a good show. Hi, Tammy Finnegan. Good to have you here. Hi, Kevin. Donnie C. Thanks for coming on in. Who else we got? Cable Guy Matt. Remember, Cable Guy Matt is giving away free pieces of autographed coaxial cable. Limited to supply to one per household. You cannot buy these in stores. All right. Hey, Rupert from the UK. Thanks for getting up early to tune on in. Grant Cameron tonight. Here we go, people. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including all of our terrestrial affiliates across North America and on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, we have them free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio for the show and my personal handle at Dave Scott SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. When it comes to UFOs, one of the best voices in research joins us tonight. Grant Cameron, since the early 1970s when he encountered Charlie Red Star, has been fanatical about learning about the UFO phenomena, whether it's chasing what the United States presidents know about UAPs or whether it's chasing down orbs, Zendras, or contact modalities. Grant is at the forefront of all this research. All of his books can be found on Amazon. Personally, I have to admit, I'm a little biased with Grant coming on because he is a hero and a mentor of mine in this field of study. He has taken me under his wing. He's never said no to a phone call to me when I've had questions. And, he beats me up because, his Winnipeg Jets recently have been a lot better than my Vancouver Canucks and Edmonton Oilers, but we'll save that for another day. At the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Grant Cameron, always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. How are you?
Just fantastic, Dave. It's always an honor to talk to you and to talk to your growing audience.
Absolutely, my friend. I mean, you've been with us a few years now when we were just teeny weeny small, and now here we are with 6 radio stations and a lot of people tuning on in every night, and everybody knows Grant Cameron. What's that like being known in this field, man? What's it like being one of the top dogs in this field?
I don't really pay any attention to, I never read anything I've written. I don't read anything, I see anything I've done. I don't listen to anything I do, and I don't watch comments on anything. So I really don't track it. I was just having a call with our friend Nicole, and we were talking about that is, a lot of the UFO community gets into, personality stuff. And I was saying to her, we've got to always remember that we've got so much material going on. You just do what you got to do and don't worry, because you can really get sucked into this thing about who's the Messiah and who's the bad guy. And a lot of ufology sort of gets sidetracked into doing this that's all they end up doing is trying to expose the bad guys and elevate themselves as the Messiah. So I guess it feels to me, I guess in reality is that I look at everything as you come into the world under the impression you came here to do something, and when you leave, you get asked the question, how did it work out? Because you're the one that planned it. And I sort of think that I've had a life that's pretty lucky in terms of looking at people who've got nothing or who have no country to live in or no money and to work in this field where you're on the very leading edge of what is reality and what's really going on. I feel honored every day, and that's what I I look at other fields, because you and I are both into hockey, and it's just nothing gets me more upset in hockey than hockey players who are making like $5 million a year or whatever, who are into themselves and they don't realize that they're so lucky, and that there's some guy making $10 an hour who takes his kid to one hockey game a year, and they really don't give a, they decide they're not going to play tonight or whatever. So I always feel almost like an NHL player, that I was so lucky to get pulled into this game, because I think if you understand what's really going on, this is the biggest story of all times. Nothing will come close to the importance of this story if you understand the underlying factors behind ufology.
I think the only story that could be bigger is if Jesus Christ himself came down from the heavens and said, "Hey, boys and girls, I'm back."
Yeah, I don't know. I think this might even be bigger than that. I mean, in terms of you go past the reality that you can actually tie Jesus into this story, that it goes into, because now I've always done the consciousness thing since 2012, but now I'm really into this thing. And the latest thing I'm working on is I'm writing a book called Extraterrestrial or Maybe Not, and I'm looking at this bizarre connection between ufology and near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, especially the near-death experience stuff. If you look at that and you look at people who've been abducted, if you take out the alien, you can't tell which is which. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, near-death experience people who will shut down batteries, drain. They have orbs, paranormal phenomena around them. They see ghosts. They can't touch electronic equipment. This is exactly like alien abduction. And that was one of the stories that just sort of got verified now, this whole thing with the Wilson document, that now it's been confirmed by Eric Davis that it did come from the collection of the late Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 and 6 band to Walk on the Moon, which is where we said it came from. And people are saying, oh, we hoaxed it and all this kind of stuff. So it's been verified. And in that document, you see at the very end, this statement made that Admiral Wilson, who was the head of intelligence for Joint Chiefs of Staff, could not get a briefing, but this other guy did get a briefing. And the two things that this guy had put out was, we've got technology, but we can't back engineer it. We're getting nowhere, and there are no abductions. And people would say, that's absolutely insane. That's absolutely crazy. How could you possibly believe that? But Kit Green, the guy who's to the stars, the guy who does the genetic stuff for this 8 guys that have been hired, I guess, by the Department of Defense to look at the MRIs and the DNA of experiencers, said this 12 years ago, no, 13 years ago, 2007 said this, there are no abductions. And I think I know what they may be getting at. There's another component to the UFO phenomena that people don't realize, this underlying aspect. And let me give you 2 examples. I just did an interview. I don't know if you've had him on your show yet. He's a really interesting guy. Ron Johnson. He's out of Utah. He's a Mormon guy who's had lifelong experiences and has documented everything. He's journaled everything since about 1970 and had a lot of experiences, 36 out-of-body experiences, and talks about LB, the being that he's dealt with and stuff like that. And in his experience, 3 of them, they allowed him into the spirit world. And in the spirit world, he's with his mother. And one time she's like, she can see her. The other time she's just with him. He can't really see her. But she takes him to a building in the spirit world. And he said it looks like a little Mormon temple. And he said she would go into this building. And he said, and once I got in the building, he said it was really weird. It was 10 times the size inside the building as it was outside the building. And I go, oh, my God, that's what Chris Bledsoe said. That's exactly what Chris Bledsoe said about the flying saucer. Because I asked Chris Bledsoe, I have a collection of people who've flown the flying saucer. And when I heard Chris had flown the flying saucer, I said, Chris, I need you to tell me. Stop. Don't want you to tell me now. I'm going to get you on a taped interview. You tell me, you start from the beginning, go to the end. Tell me exactly how to fly a flying saucer. And it starts, I go in and the craft's like 10 times the size inside as it is outside. And I look outside and it's a little craft. I look inside, it's this big craft. It's exactly what Ron Johnson described in the spirit world. And the other guy was Terry Lovelace, says this as well, an experiencer, where he said it's 10 times the size on the inside of the craft as on the outside of the craft, which means we do not have this technology. No matter, anybody can tell me whatever, we do not have this technology. And the other thing Ron said was, so you see this connection between this thing. is he having an out-of-body experience or is he having an abduction experience? And the other thing that he said was when he was in this building, his mother takes him to the far end of the building, and there's a table there. It has all these crystals coming out of the table. And in these crystals, everybody has a crystal when they die, and you have this crystal, and you look in the crystal, and you can see all your past lives. You can see your life in 3D and replay it and all this kind of stuff. And it's how you look at the crystal at a certain angle, and you can see your past lives and stuff. And Michael Newton, who's in Journey of Souls, wrote about this in the Life Between Lives as well, that people have these books and you open it up and there's this crystal in there and you look at this crystal. And as soon as Ron tells me this thing, that there's all these crystals, you have this crystal, I'm thinking, that's UFO Cover-Up Live, 1988. Because we were involved in this thing, that this was supposedly a big leak by Ronald Reagan. And Richard Doty says in this backlit interview that he does on that show, he said the most amazing thing he saw was the aliens had a crystal. And that you looked at the crystal and you could see the history of the world. And the rumor was in the 1980s, when this first came out, is that they had shown the crucifixion of Jesus Christ to the American government, that you could see it in this crystal. It's the same story. It's identical story about this crystal thing. And then you start to think, like, what's really going on here? Is this really, or are abductions actually taking place? Or is this all, because a lot of experiencers will tell you, they took me astrally. They took me out and I was in a craft astrally. Or if you look at DMT experiments that were done in the 1990s, Strassman kept secret for many years the fact that half of the people who do the DMT experiment that he was doing had seen aliens or seen beings in their experience, and that 25% of them had the abduction experience. And these are people who had a 10-minute experience lying on a couch. And so you start looking at this stuff, and that's what I sort of look at now. I look at all these crossovers between what we call contact modalities, and you start to see it's like it's all woven together. It's all this really weird stuff, and it basically has one lesson. It is 1,000,000 times more complex than you think it is. It is going to be a lot less physical than people think it is. It's going to be a lot more spiritual than people think it is. It's not going to have a hint of capitalism in it, and it's like 1,000,000 times more complex than people think it is. It is unbelievable when you get into looking at all these modalities and you see all these connections. And it's not just little aliens coming in little tin cans with 1,000 years of food inside of it. It's so complex, and it gets to the basic idea of what is reality, what is the world really made of, and it is we are completely out to lunch as to how the world actually works. And that's my final conclusion, and from what I've seen now.
Grant, since you were last on the show, we picked up a brand new station in Mississauga, Ontario. So we finally got a Canadian audience. For our Canadian listeners out there, you know, a lot of times the question I hear is, what is Canada's role in all of this? What do we actually know? What is going on up here? Do we have a role in what's happening with the current view of ufology?
You're talking government?
Government, military, anybody.
I get asked that question all the time because I worked on the U.S. presidents and I chased around the, head scientists of the CIA and the Avery and all those guys. And so they asked me, what do you think's going on in Canada? I say, I haven't got the foggiest notion. In 43 years, I knew what was going on in the 1950s because I got all the material. I've got all Wilbert Smith's files, and he ran the Canadian government UFO program, or flying saucer program. He never used the word UFO. To him, it was always flying saucers, and it was aliens. It was not. We're not going to play games with words and stuff like that, and counterintelligence and stuff. So, from 50 to 54, the Canadians knew. Wilbert Smith knew what was going on, and he actually knew maybe even more than some others. Because I was just on a show with Nick Pope and with Jan Harzan and J.J. Hurtak, and we were talking about disclosure, and we got into the thing, and I kept making this point, like, you got to go to consciousness. I mean, who cares what the government knows? It doesn't really make any difference. You got to get to consciousness to understand what's really going on here. And that at that point, Nick says, well, I really don't consciousness is not my field. I really don't know much about it. It's not my expertise. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, the Canadians, the Americans may have been stuck in the naughty corner, or the British may have been stuck in the naughty corner. If Nick Pope doesn't know anything about consciousness, the Canadians knew about this in 1950. In the top secret memo that was written in 1950, the Canadians were told by American officials, that's what Wilbur Smith writes in the top secret memo, flying saucers exist. It's the most highly classified subject in the United States. Small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush, who are trying to figure out what's going on. The subject is of tremendous significance to the Americans, and we were told by American officials that other things might be associated with the flying saucers, such as mental phenomena. So you get this thing where the Canadians knew right up front that this mental phenomena thing was part of the UFO thing. So the Canadians knew, but they shut it down in 1954 when Wilbert Smith had an alien by name of Alpha, and he asked a trans-channeler in Maine to get Alpha to fly over Ottawa. And it didn't. It was supposed to happen August the 1st, 1954. It didn't happen until a week later, August the 8th. Wilbur had a flying saucer observatory, so the Canadians were very advanced. Wilbur Smith in the 1950s, anything that he said went front page in every newspaper in the country. He was that well known, and in the UFO community, he was sat on the nightcap board. He was a very, very powerful guy because he was a Canadian official working on the flying saucer program, and he didn't really beat around the bush that he was doing that. And so on August the 8th, 1954, this UFO flew over his flying saucer observatory. He had 5 different things they were monitoring. I talked to the one guy who was in the building when it happened. Everything went off the chart, and they went running out, and it was overcast. They really couldn't see what was going on. And but they determined that something definitely, it wasn't a plane. It wasn't, because they had all these signatures of all different stuff. And Wilbur had gone on the record and said, well, if it isn't something wrong with the equipment, we've just detected the first flying saucer over Ottawa. And at that point, they just shut it down. They said, there's nothing to it. They shut it down on August the 10th, 2 days later, said nothing to it. Wilbur has not allowed to make any statements on behalf of the government anymore, but he's allowed to use the equipment, and there's nothing to this, and we're out of the UFO program. And so the Canadians since then have said nothing. And that's where I always say, if you want the story to go away, you do exactly what the Canadians did, is you don't do anything. You just sit there and say nothing, because I wouldn't know who to ask. I remember people would say to me, well, who's there? And I remember they asked Paul Hellyer that question. And we were actually in Toronto at the time, and there was a panel of reporters asking questions, and they asked Paul, and Paul said, I don't know, probably the head of the Privy Council, and he's guessing away. You can tell he's guessing. He doesn't know who's running the program in Canada either. And yet he was the defense minister, and he said when he was defense minister, there was UFO sightings, but it was nothing major, and he wasn't interested either. So he wasn't running the program when he was in the government. And then later on, he made the statement. He said, I know somebody who would be interested. He said he talks about this phone call where he gets a phone call from the Air Force officer. I don't know if you've heard this story. Gets a phone call from the Air Force officers and say, there's this guy, he's dying, and he's got to get something off his chest, and he's decided you're the guy he needs to talk to. And then he said he's the head of emergency management for Canada, and he wants to talk to you. And so Paul said, okay. So Paul doesn't contact him. The Air Force guy phones him back. The guy has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and he said, the guy's about to go off the cliff. You better phone him. So he phones the guy up. And he's talking to this guy, and the guy says, it's for real. It's all for real. He said, I signed off my life. I went to the CIA, signed all these papers, security and stuff like that. And I was actually inside a craft at Area 51. And I just want you to know, I need to get this off my chest before I die. The thing's for real. It's exactly what they're saying is going on. But I would think what's happening with the Canadian government is like every other Western Bloc country. They basically hand it over to the Americans. You may have a couple of people inside the military and intelligence who will gather the material in Canada and move it to the United States. I believe the Americans are basically running the show, and the Canadians sit back and say nothing. And that's why the Americans are leaking this story, is because if the Americans wanted the story to go away, if they really wanted to cover the thing up, they would just shut up like the Canadians and do nothing. And people like me wouldn't know what was going on. But what's happening in the United States is they're leaking material, they're leaking documents, they're putting stuff out, which means they're not covering up, but yet they're not disclosing, because if they wanted to disclose, they'd stand the president up and tell you exactly what's going on. They're doing something in between, which makes me think they've got crafts, they've got at least one body, but they haven't got the foggiest notion. And in my Facebook page, you'll see I just put up the interview with Richard Doty that I did last year. And Richard Doty gets into this. He talks about pieces of material being brought to Hal Puthoff, and to try to get Hal Puthoff to figure out what these things are. Hal Puthoff can't figure out what these things are. He says a lot of very dramatic stuff, but it agrees to that premise that, yes, we have material, we have hardware, but in terms of back engineering, this stuff is so far beyond what we know that it's just been put on the shelf, and they're really not getting anywhere. And you get that confirmation when you see some of the email chains, like between Eric Davis, was the chief scientist for Hal Puthoff, and Jacques Sarfati, where they're arguing about the mathematics for floating this piece of metal with the layered piece of metal. And I just say, I mean, if these two top scientists, physicists, are arguing about the mathematics about floating a little piece of metal, that's we ain't got nothing. I mean, if we're talking about floating a piece of metal, so that's my sort of conclusion. The Canadians, there may be somebody in there, but they really don't need the Canadians. They just we're almost like the military. We just salute and do what we're told.
We got about 3.5 minutes here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Grant Cameron is our guest tonight. Grant, you mentioned Richard Doty or Rick Doty, whatever he's going by these days. We've had him on this show. I've talked to him a couple of times as well. You know, there's a lot of people in this field who do not trust him because of what happened with Paul Benowitz and other things. There are other people who say that the dude is bang on. In 2.5 minutes here, how do we describe, you know, what he's like? What's the real Rick Doty?
Rick Doty is a guy who worked for the U.S. Air Force. And like everybody else, he just did what he was told to do. In one interview, and I'll have to try to look this up. In one interview, he actually identifies who was the guy who was giving the orders that he was reporting to. I mean, that's the whole thing. When he brings Linda Howe into the office, and what they're doing, it's the same thing. They're not disclosing and they're not covering up. So what you do is you take real information, you surround it by disinformation, and you put it out. You put mud in the water. You have 3 different stories going at the same time. So the story gets out, but nobody knows what the real story is. So you sort of know we got crafts at Area 51. You sort of know something's going on. He just did his job. He was there. And you see the whole story about Benowitz. Benowitz was good friends with Doty. He was right till he died. He was good friends with Doty. Benowitz believed this. It's like they said, Benowitz didn't need any help, and everybody else was in it. And I always report the story, and nobody seems to want to believe that thing, that there was researchers involved in this. Well, J.L. Hynek, according to Bill Moore, was the guy that went to Benowitz with the computer. It wasn't Richard Doty. It was J.L. Hynek who went to Benowitz with this computer that they gave him and said, "Oh, this will track the aliens," and it was actually tracking him. So everybody was in the bag. Richard Doty, part of it is disinformation, and Benowitz had picked up on something, and if it happened to you or me, they have to shut him down. So he was believed in this alien stuff, and they just let him believe it, and they pushed it, whatever. Richard Doty was used by Hal Puthoff. That's all you need to know. Years ago, I knew that they were talking to Doty, that Kit Green was good friends with him, and I'm going, if he's this bad guy, why is Hal Puthoff dealing with him? Why is Kit Green dealing with him? And they would talk about him all the time. Eric Davis would say, oh, they're contacting Rick about this or whatever. And basically, if Hal Puthoff was using him, then he's got inside information. So he was doing counterintelligence and intelligence at the same time. But everybody's doing the same thing. You're not going to get a straight story. If you've got an intelligence officer, he can't tell you what's going on. They're putting out information, good information, bad information. And that's why I wrote the book called Managing Magic. That's what they're doing. They're managing a story. They're not really telling you the truth, and they're not really covering up.
That's a lot in a short period of time, man. A lot in a short period of time. Grant, when we come back, I want to get into the Wilson files because you have played a major role in getting these out to the public, and the story has really taken a real turn on its own. But I get the feeling from hearing what I'm hearing that this story isn't even close to being over yet. Let's go and talk about the Wilson files when we get back, if you don't mind. You okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Just making sure you were okay with that. Grant Cameron is
anything you want to talk about.
I know.
I have nothing to hide.
That's why I love you, my friend. That's why I love you. Grant Cameron is here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. His website, presidentialufo.com. If you want to check it on out, he's got a ton of books on Amazon as well. Literally, this guy is putting out a book about every 36 hours. So you could get yourself a brand new Grant Cameron book coming on up here. Just go to Amazon. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. Well, there's 1/2 hour down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll have to tell my music story. You got a Mississauga story. I'll tell my music story about the famous American Woman story. That's a good story about where the song came from. Came in out of Mississauga. Bizarre paranormal story.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, I can't wait for hockey season. You know what pisses me off about the hockey season, Grant? Honestly?
What's that?
Is the fact that when we moved up here, I didn't want cable, so we didn't get cable. And then literally, I get a call from one of my Shaw Cable reps, okay? And he's like, oh, well, you know, you got internet with us, you're a preferred customer and all of this kind of stuff. And, you know, for just $5 more a month, we can have Cable Guy Matt, and Cable Guy Matt's in our chat room right now. Come on over and give you cable. I said, you're only adding $5 to my monthly payment? He goes, yeah. I said, that's it. There's no BS or anything about this. And he's like, no. So I said, okay. And I'm like, oh, man, it's going to be great to have hockey on television again and watch some football games and watch the Lions and all this kind of stuff. And then a week later, COVID hits, shuts everything down. I'm like, I looked up and I look up to the heavens and I just yelled at God. I said, you really do hate me, don't you? You really, really do hate me. If you can't tell me now, I've just learned the lesson.
It's pretty tough on sports people, I can tell you. Even my mother has center ice, so she watches like 7 games a night, yelling and screaming at the TV and whatever. And I mean, it's pretty dead. I mean, some of the crap they're putting on to replace hockey. I mean, it's just any live sports. I didn't realize how important live sports was until I saw what happened here. It's like people are just lost.
Oh, absolutely. I'm lost, man. I'm totally lost.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, like we watch sports desk TSN, and I mean they're talking about NFL football all the time, and it's like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. It's like the trades and what they're going to do or whatever. It's like, where's hockey? Like, come on. It's like,
I hear you. I hear you. Man.
At least you guys may be going to get some of the games there. I mean, they're not even looking at us. I don't know how they can do that, how they can go to like an American city or to Vancouver, because you're going to need all these practice rinks. I mean, maybe Vancouver has some practice rinks.
Oh, Vancouver has lots.
I mean, Las Vegas or something, they got no practice rinks. How are you going to have a pile of teams in there?
They got a practice rink at one of the hotels just off the strip.
Yeah, but that's one. I mean, if you're going to put 15 teams in there, you're going to need a lot of, like Winnipeg. We got like 300 rinks.
Yeah,
and we have no COVID. They're going to go into Chicago that's loaded with the virus. We haven't got any. We've got nobody in the hospital here, I don't think. I mean, it's like, but of course Winnipeg, it's like nobody, even Canadians don't want to visit Winnipeg.
True story. When I was playing men's league hockey, we go to one of these 24-hour tournaments in Vegas, and like a week before we're going, we have like 15 guys confirmed. By the time we got to Vegas, and a bunch of the wives said, "You're not going." We were down to 8 we were down to 8 players and a goalie, man. 8 players and a goalie, and we're playing this team from Michigan. Okay, and they've literally got 17 players, 2 goalies, a coach on the bench. Oh, dude, it was insane. Great looking uniforms and everything. Well, they got this small short man syndrome guy wearing the full iTech cage, and he slashes our goalie. We have one goalie, man, and he slashes him right behind the legs. What? So I skate, and I'm the defenseman there, and I skate up to him. I grab a hold of him and just kind of start giving him a few punches to the head and with my gloves on. And I said, buddy, like, we got to go now. We got to go. Like, you can't be doing that. And so all of a sudden the referee blows a whistle. We're at center ice, and I'm giving a few jabs. Let go of me. Their captain jumps off the bench, skates over to me, says, look, we know you guys are Canadian. We know you know how to fight. We don't want any part of this. We're not a fighting team. And I look at my bench. I can only see 2 of the 3 guys on the bench because we got 5 on the ice. 2 guys on the bench, and their bench is completely packed. I look at the captain. I said, get this fucking short man syndrome dude off the ice, man. Otherwise, I'm going to fucking pound him, right? And I'm looking at the bench again, and I'm just killing myself laughing because if we would have brawled, man, it would have hurt. I'm not gonna lie, it would have hurt bad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're drinking. You go to those things and everybody's drinking. You only got 8 guys. It's a pretty long hockey game.
Oh, my God. Our first game was at 12:30 at night. Our second game was at 3:30 the next afternoon. Then we had a 32-hour layover before we played at 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't like that. And then we played in the final that night at like 7:00. It was fantastic. Hey, Michael Leger, thank you so much for coming on in. Appreciate that. Michael Boyle, you weren't even close to there. You don't even know what a hockey puck is, even though, you're as pretty as a hockey puck. But, let's just keep it like that. Oh, yeah. It was nuts. We got about 30 seconds here. Hey, I want to say a big thank you to Inzane, Science Bob, Jules, and Michael for jumping on in the Super Chat tonight. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate that. Super Chat is open. Don't forget, we also, what am I trying to say? Have the website going. You can buy some swag at spacedoutradio.com. Join our space travelers for $5 a month. And we are actually about to start the second half hour here. Grant Cameron is our guest. Hi, Eva. Hey, Cable Guy Matt. Yeah, Cable Guy Matt's good people. Oh, by the way, Grant, I know you've been in my area. I got next break, I'll tell you about a nice Dogman story that I just got told the other day.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, apparently we have Dogman here now. Here we go. Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair in SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us, especially if this is your first time tuning on in. We want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and doing a little shopping at the SOR Vault, reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio for the show, and my personal handle at Dave Scott SOR. Grant Cameron is here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Now, about a year and a bit ago, there was some big news. Grant and his good friend and lawyer, the paranormal lawyer that you hear here on Sunday nights, Michael W. Hall, well, they started talking about this Wilson document. Couldn't say much about it at the time, but we're like, you know what? We got to do something with this. And it ends up that the story still continues. Grant, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Dave.
Grant, at the time when you were given the Wilson document, did you ever think that this would be such a loaded story that has the potential to be absolutely massive across the world?
I knew it was big when I saw it. Yeah, I've seen a lot of documents. People always come to me at conferences with videos and documents and things they think is important, whatever. And I give you the background because it sort of explains. We got the document. I got the document from James Rigney. He got a vision in the middle of the night that he had to do some of this document. He'd had the document, I think, for a year or maybe longer than a year. And he had the alien autopsy document, which is the other. And he gave me 4 documents. 3 of them have been released. The 4th one really is not a UFO document. So anyway, he got this vision. He lives in Australia, so he got up in the middle of the night and he emailed his wife and he said, "I need you to scan the Wilson document and send it to me." And I was supposed to have a meeting with him that morning. I didn't realize that he wanted to talk to me or whatever. And Desta, my assistant, was she was in contact. I was on the main floor of the casino, and you have no coverage, no internet coverage. And we're in Canada. You don't put your cell phone on in the States. So they didn't get a hold of me. Anyway, at 11 o'clock, we were going to Tucson. We had to be there for dinner. Desta and I were driving there. And so James comes up to me and he says, first Desta was upset. Like, how come you didn't answer your phone? James wanted this meeting. He's got something important to tell you. And I'm going, well, whatever, And then he comes up and he says, I need to talk to you. I need to show you a document. And I said, well, James, we're kind of busy. We're heading out here. We're going to Tucson, and I'm kind of busy. Can you just email it to me? And he said, well, no, I got to show it to you. It's kind of important or whatever. And then I'm going, well, we're kind of busy. We got to be in Tucson by 5 o'clock, and we got to leave right now, whatever. And then he stops me. He says, I need 10 minutes of your time. I said, okay, whatever. And so it's like the old thing. It's like he pulls out this little iPad. He's got these documents on this iPad. And I sit down, and it's like every other document. It's like, okay, whatever, And then I look, and as soon as I saw the document, and we're releasing a book called the Alien Documents. I'm going to release a bunch of documents that I've been given over the years by various people, and some pretty interesting documents. We can talk about them. But so he shows me this document, and one of the documents we're going to release in the Alien Documents is 26 pages of notes from Eric Davis that Eric Davis gave me many, many years ago. And they're the notes from John Alexander's UFO working group, which was the Advanced Physics Theoretical Working Group. So this happened in the 1980s, where John Alexander gets 20 top secret SCI people with these ultra high security clearances. They go to this vault in Virginia and a skiff, and they have these meetings, and Hal Puthoff's there, and Kit Green is there, and John Alexander's there, and Ron Blackburn, all these super high level military intelligence people. And basically they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on with UFOs. They're trying to get some funding, almost like TTSA, same thing. They're trying to get the funding, and so they're reviewing cattle mutilations and all the different things, and they're comparing notes. And basically they come to the same conclusion that I say is the conclusion I've come to, is they basically said, yeah, UFOs are real. Something's going on, but we haven't got the foggiest notion what the back engineering. It's gone into some sort of black hole. We don't know what's going on. And so anyway, Eric Davis had given me these notes many years ago, and they were the notes. There was 20 guys in there, and these came from Oak Shannon. So maybe people know who Oak Shannon was now, but in 2018, when I saw the document, I knew that nobody knew who Oak Shannon was. Only I knew who he was, because I had his notes. I had these notes from the UFO Working Group. So I look at the first page of this document, and I see Oak Shannon's name, and then I see Eric Davis notes, and I'm going, holy shit, where did you get this from? And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm starting to read it, and then he wanders off. I still remember I had this iPad, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? He hasn't agreed to give me this document. Do I pull up my camera and start photographing this iPad? Because I realized this is a significant document. So he came back, and I said, so I need to know, where did you get this thing from? And all I saw was 2 pages, and I still to this day I've not read the document. I sort of glanced at the first 2 pages, and then when he sent it to me, it was 15 pages long, and that's when I flipped out. I went, oh, I didn't realize it was this big. It's like, oh my God, and I've got to drop this thing. Because I promised him I'd get it out. I said I would put it in this book called Beyond. I did a book called Managing Magic, and we were about to release Beyond Managing Magic. So I said to James, I'll take these 2 documents, the alien autopsy and the Wilson document, and I'm just going to put them in Beyond Managing Magic. I'm going to put them in the back of the book, and I'm not going to say anything about them. I'm just going to stick them in there like an appendix. And somebody's going to pick it up and go, what is this? And then the scandals, the things are going to blow up. So I always knew it would blow up. That's why I was so scared, because I knew these guys. Remember, I had gotten these notes from Eric Davis, from Oak Shannon. So I knew who these guys were. And I had dealt with Eric Davis a number of times. I had dealt with Hal Puthoff. I had dealt with a lot of these guys. And it's sort of like, somebody leaks me a Dave Scott thing, and I go, well, Dave Scott and I are friends, but I need to have a story here. So I'm cutting Dave Scott's throat. And that's what it came down to. It's like, I don't know if I can do this. I know these guys. I mean, this is an important document. And so then I sort of flipped out when he finally sent me the document. And I didn't know what to do with the document. And I remember James Ian Dolly called me in December, and I think I was on your show, and I was leaking the fact that we had this document. And January the 1st, that's when I went to Michael Hall, because I knew, man, I was in trouble. I had to do something. I couldn't sleep at night. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do with this. So I contacted Michael Hall, and all I was worried about was a lawsuit. what if I put this out and these guys all sue me? And I said, I need some legal advice. And then he contacted me. He contacted me back like right away. You know, Michael Hall, he's like, you know, on top of everything. He contacted me like 5 minutes later, and then I'm completely gone cold. It's like I don't answer Michael Hall's email for like a week, and I'm going, oh, I should not contact Michael Hall. What the hell done with Michael Hall for? And I was just freaking out. And so then when I finally I talked to Michael, then I was just worried about what if I release this document. And I wasn't worried about, because I've never been threatened by the government. I've never, you know, the worst I've had is Ron Pandolfi called me a loon. But I've never had anything, so I've never worried about that kind of stuff. But I was more worried about the fact where they were going to sue me or whatever. So what I was going to do so then what I decided I would do is I would take the Beyond Managing Magic, and I would take out all the names of all my people that I knew in the document, and I would release it that way. And that's when Michael Hall told me about the living, what do they call it? What did we sign? We had a lawyer there and everything. A trust thing where if I die, I gave Michael maybe 40 pages of material, maybe more, 50 pages of material, that if I die, it drops day after. So if I ever die, everybody will watch the internet next day, because Michael Hall, and I even said to Michael Hall, because he's older than I am, I said, okay, Michael, okay, so I signed this thing, and the minute I die, you drop all the stuff on the internet, because he's a lawyer. He can say, you know, he doesn't have to say where it's coming from. You know, it's client privilege, and he just drops it on the thing. I said, so what about you? I mean, if you die, I mean, who's going to have the documents? I mean, how is it going to get out? I mean, if you die, then it all falls apart. And so we had this thing, and we went to LA, and he brought in somebody to sign, and we had legal documents, and I did this trust document where I put all this stuff, the stuff that had been leaked to me over the years, because that's what I believe. I mean, I'm doing the Stanton Friedman files, and I'm not that I was into Stanton Friedman or anything, but I thought I'm so interested. It's like when you go to a like if you're discovering King Tut's tomb. Like I'm going into there, and here's all Stanton's files, and I know with me and probably with you, you've got a lot of stories. You've written them down somehow. They're in your files, but you've never told anybody, and it's like your deepest, darkest secrets are in there. And I figured, man, I'm going to Stanton's files. There's got to be something in Stanton's files where he talked about MJ-12, or someone gave him a piece of metal, and there is a piece of metal. Somebody gave him a piece of the Roswell craft that's at the archives, and so that kind of stuff is what you're looking for. So that's why I said to Michael that, you know, all this stuff would drop in the Wilson document. The alien autopsy document was in there. These notes from Oak Shannon were there. There was a bunch of stuff that would all come out. And then what happened was Michael was editing, and we had problems with the book, with the editing. We lost all the footnotes, and there was a delay, and then there was a bunch of stuff happening, and I couldn't keep up with all the story and stuff. And then I decided, no, I'm not gonna drop the thing. So James said to me, he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I can't do it, James. I said, this is your document, man. You got to drop this thing, not me, man. You've got anonymity. Everybody, like Dave Scott knows I've got it now. I told Jimmy Church. Everybody was after me. Everybody knew I had this document. And I said, you got to drop it, man. And then he said, well, I think I'll send it to James Fox. I go, James Fox ain't going to do nothing with this document. James Fox is a documentary guy. He's not going to do anything with this document. I said, you got to drop it to somebody who doesn't care, who doesn't know these people, number one, and doesn't really care about dropping the document. I even suggested I think, send it to Dave Scott. And he really didn't do anything. And then what happened was I was still worried. It went on for months. I couldn't sleep. I was just really having a bad time. And then I decided, well, I'm a disclosure guy. So, I mean, I can't drop it, but anybody wants the document, I'll give you the document. So people would ask me, and they'd say, you know, what's new? And I'd say, oh, I got this document. It's really, I can't drop this thing, but and I had this one guy, and he had actually had a connection to the stars, and he had the connection to Joe Firmage. So he contacted me, and it was nothing to do with this. He was interested in, he was an experiencer, and he had all this kind of stuff going on. And he had a friend of his who was a guy in Defense Intelligence, where Elizondo is, at the Pentagon. And so he contacts me, and he's saying to me, what's new? And we're talking about different stuff. And I said, look at this document, man. These two documents, and I don't know what to do with them. And it's driving me nuts, and I wanted to leak them, and I don't know what to do with them. And he said, well, show them to me. And so I said, sure. So I gave him the document. And then he says, well, why don't you just drop it? And I said, well, I know these guys. And it's a tough position I'm in. And then he said, live with us.
Hey, Grant, your audio has really gotten choppy there as soon as you started that.
Call me on the phone.
I will call you on your phone. We'll be getting Grant here back momentarily here because, we kind of need some clear audio here. So let's get Grant back here just momentarily. So his internet signal seemed to have died off there for a quick second, but we're getting into some good juice here. Very, very good juice. And that's one thing that we always got to enjoy about Grant is he's always filled with that kind of information. So we'll get Grant back here momentarily on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we got Grant back.
Okay, that was the government. That wasn't the government. That's my computer. I've got some, either a drive or something that's happened maybe once every week or every 2 weeks. But it's not the government. Don't worry.
Are you sure? Because it's a lot more fun when it is the government.
Conspiracy porn. That's the big thing is conspiracy porn.
Absolutely.
So what was my story?
Well, you were talking about Firmage. You were talking about the fact that you were going to potentially be sued, and then what to do, who's going to drop the documents of the Wilson documents, how do you get it out there? And you just said, "Screw it, I'll do it myself."
Well, no, this guy came to me and he said, I said at that point, I said, "Well, I can't drop it, but anybody who wants to see it." Because James Ian asked me for the document. I said no, and then I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing the same thing as everybody else. I'm covering up. Like, why would I cover up? I mean, I can't drop it, so give it to somebody, and maybe they'll drop it. So this guy contacted me, and he had this guy in the Pentagon, and he said the guy in the Pentagon says, well, you just put it on Reddit, and it'll circulate there. So then, but he got the document, and then he said to me, he was in Chicago. He phoned me from Chicago in an elevator, and he says, "Oh, I think that document that you had, I think it's on the internet now." And I go, "Oh, okay." So I'm pretty sure he's the one that dropped it. I'm not 100% sure. And then he asked me for the alien autopsy thing. And I think they dropped that thing as well. But the thing was, most people don't realize it's out on the internet for months. And Jimmy Church had a copy. It had been sent to him by I don't know. I'm not sure who sent it to him, but he wouldn't open it because it was a link, and he thought it was a scam, so he didn't open the document. And same with Richard Dolan didn't see it, but when Richard Dolan saw it, he had seen the document. He had seen the first 2 pages. He had been shown it by one of the people in the document. He had been shown its first 2 pages, so he knew it was for real. And he actually phones up a guy who showed it to him, and he said, "Oh." He said, "You know the document you showed me, the first 2 pages?" And he was actually on Jimmy Church's show about 6 months before he went public with the document. And on the Jimmy Church show, Jimmy Church says to me, "You ever seen a document, Richard, where you're not allowed to release it or talk about it or whatever?" And Richard said, "Yeah, I saw a document like that one time." And he starts describing this document, and I got a phone call from James Rigney, and he said, "Did you give the document to Dolan?" I said, "No, I didn't." He said, "He's on Jimmy Church talking about it." I said, "No, he's not." He said, "Yeah, he is." I went, and sure enough. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, he's talking about the document. And I'm thinking, maybe I did send it to him. And I was confused, but he'd been shown pages. So what he does is when he got the document, when he saw the document, that's why he said it was the leak of the century, because he'd already seen it. He'd seen the first 2 pages. And then he had the 15 pages. So then he phones up the person, and he says, "You know that document you showed me 10 years ago?" And the guy said, "Yeah." He said, "I got the whole document." And then the guy says, "Oh, I guess the toothpaste is out of the tube." So Dolan and I knew right from the I mean, didn't matter. All these people were doing radio shows about the conspiracy, and we scammed and we faked the document or whatever. And Richard and I made an agreement. We just sit back. We're not going to talk to anybody. We're not going to do any interviews with anybody. Let them talk about whatever they want. Nothing's going to make this document go away. We know it's a document that came out of Edgar Mitchell's files, and that's what it was. It was just simply the documents that Edgar Mitchell had been on the board of NIDS. And Eric Davis was on NIDS, and they were contacting me. When NIDS was going, they were talking to me about the whole Air Force Base film. That was one of the projects they were working on. So Bigelow was just a guy who had a lot of money, who would bring in guys like Kit Green and Hal Puthoff and all these people. John Alexander was running the thing, and they were bringing in near-death experience people and stuff. And he was just trying to get the answer to certain questions, and he could afford to bring these people in. And when you're getting paid thousands of dollars a day, per diem. Well, you got to produce stuff. So they would, he'd pick the brains of all these very smart people who had intelligence backgrounds and stuff. And one of the things that we're working on was the Wilson thing, because it happened in 97. I was involved. Richard was involved. Juliana Marakovic was involved. Billy Cox was involved when that first story, when Stephen Greer and Mitchell and Will Miller, who's in the Wilson leak document. Will Miller is the military advisor to Stephen Greer. He gets a meeting for them with Admiral Wilson at the Pentagon. And they walk in there and they do the briefing, and Wilson's upset. I don't know what the hell's going on. I should be running this program. They show him this document that's actually in Beyond Managing Magic. I show the actual document they showed him. And he said, I should be running this program. And he phones up the guy, and the lawyer just said, sorry, sir, you're not in a need to know, and it slammed the phone down on him. And he's the head of intelligence he's the head intelligence guy in the United States. So that's how the story starts. So Bigelow sends in Eric Davis, I guess through Will Miller sets up the meeting again with Admiral Wilson, and Eric Davis interviews him. That's what the Wilson thing is. It's just his notes from this interview, and it's a report to Bob Bigelow. So all this stuff that we had, and Mitchell had died, and these guys should have realized that he was on the board of NIDS, and they had these documents from these various projects that they'd run, and maybe they went to the funeral, but they didn't try to pick up the documents. And then when Mitchell's kids were going through the estate, nobody wanted the UFO stuff. It was like, no, we're not interested. That's where everybody's interested in the Apollo stuff. It's worth piles of money and stuff like that. And one guy from Australia says he's there when this is going on. He said, well, don't throw it out. I'll take it. And that's how it happened. This guy got it, and he's friends with James Rigney. And then James Rigney had held it for a year, and he got this vision in the middle of the night to give the document. He had to give it to me, and he gave it to me, and then eventually it got out. And then I released, this other guy released the alien autopsy document, and then the scandal started. We scammed this all. It's not true. They're fake documents or whatever. And then I put out the third document, which was Bigelow inviting Edgar Mitchell to all these NIDS meetings. They had 6 meetings a year on the board and what they were doing. I leaked that document to prove that it was coming from the Mitchell files. And then the conspiracy stuff still went on about, it was all hoax and whatever. And now the first thing that happened was Hal Puthoff gives this speech in February of this year where he says, my assistant, Eric Davis, had a meeting with Admiral Wilson. So he confirms there was a meeting, that they actually did meet together. And then in this, the interview that's just now coming out, it's been held back, the actual part where he talks about it, but it's the New York Post does a series of articles. And so the interviews from November of last year, they interview Eric Davis, and they're talking about To the Stars and the ASAP and the ATIP program, and is he a contractor? And he goes through the whole thing about how it all works and stuff like that. And they pulled this part about Wilson. So he asked him about Wilson. He said, so what about the Wilson leak document? And Eric was right in the camera. He said, I'm not talking about it. And he said, well, you're all over this thing, man. It's like all over the place. And he said, yeah, I know that. I mean, it's in Edgar Mitchell's files. Big deal. I'm not going to make any comment on it. So he basically confirms the exact story that we told. It's from Edgar Mitchell's files. It's no big deal. It's these files. It's not classified. It's just Eric Davis's notes to Bob Bigelow. They sent him out on this project, and that's what the alien autopsy document is. It's another project they were working on. They looked at the 95 alien autopsy thing and said, I wonder if this thing's for real. And Bigelow calls in all these people to do an analysis on the thing, and that's when Kit Green comes in and says, it's for real, man. I saw still photographs of the alien autopsy. I was briefed 3 times, and it's for real. And that's what's in you'll see the interview I just released today on Richard Doty. Richard Doty talks about it. He said, did you see the document? He said, no, I haven't seen the document. But he said, we had meetings all the time. We were in Houston. We had a meeting. We went to Kit Green's office about the alien autopsy. Yeah, he says, this is all for real. I mean, we had all these meetings about this thing. It was a NIDS project. So that's basically what the 2 documents are. They're NIDS programs. And they worked on black triangles. They worked on countermutations. They just went on through all these different things, and they picked the brains of these very high guys. They used to be called the Avery, and now they're the To the Stars thing. See, that's what To the Stars is doing. They're gathering all these really smart guys who have inside track, and they're trying to pick their brains as to what's going on.
Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio number 2. We will continue with the Wilson documents, the importance of them, and the future of ufology right here on Spaced Out Radio, coming up next in hour 2. That's solid talking right there, Grant. Solid talking right there. Good stuff.
Okay, I should be able to go back on Skype. I should be okay. Let's try Skype and see if it's
okay. I'm just going to run my dogs out. I'll hang up here and I'll run my dogs outside, and then I'll call you back on Skype when I get back. Okay. We got about 7 minutes here. I'll be back in like 3.
Okay.
All right, put you guys on commercial. I'll be right back.
We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spicing up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today.
I must have stepped away. Oh, we'll get him back here in a second. How we all doing, YouTube? We're all packed up here. We're all packed up. That's good stuff. It's good stuff. Hope you're enjoying tonight. Hope you're enjoying tonight. We'll get Grant here in a second. Oh, there he is. Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
My phone rang. The Skype on my phone. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, that's all right. That happens to me too.
I've never had luck with Skype.
Yeah. You look good. That's the main thing.
There you go. How's the weather there? Good?
Yeah. It's been raining. It's been raining a lot lately, which is good because we need the water. Flooding all over the place, but that's okay.
Wow.
That's okay. That's something that we kind of like. But, hopefully it's not going to be a big forest fire season here. So that's the big thing.
That's all you need is another disaster going on.
Oh, God, yeah, I know. We're hoping, but I got a report about. I was talking to a buddy of mine in town, an acquaintance here, and he will tell you that, or he was telling me that about a month and a half ago, he rescues older dogs. Okay, so he tries to adopt them out, and if he can't, it doesn't matter. They'll stay at his house until their time is up. It's really good that way. He's got like 15 dogs. And anyways, long story short, he was calling his dogs in for dinner, and he couldn't find 3 of his dogs. So he goes back in his acreage, and it kind of goes down a little bit of a hill, and his dogs are all kind of hanging out with this thing that's kind of black. And all of a sudden this thing stands up on 2 legs, and he's only 300 feet away from it. It's not that far. Stands up on 2 legs and stares right at him and walks away. And then his dogs come back.
Wow.
So I'm going out there this coming weekend. I was going to go out yesterday, except I got caught up doing stuff around the house here. And but I'm going to go out there next weekend, and I'm going to check this out because, secretly speaking, he also says that he has some ET type activity happening there.
There you go. That's what you want.
So I may have found my Zen zone that I've been looking for up here.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be good, man. Gonna be good. Going to get into some weird stuff.
Yeah, you get somebody who's got the stuff. It's sometimes the guy that's attracting him, not so much the areas.
You got that right.
Alive when you get your Stutzo there.
All right, we got music on, my friend. Here we go with the second hour, everybody on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, please do so. And please hit that subscribe button. Here we go. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you all for joining us, especially if you're on one of our terrestrial affiliates across North America and you're tuning on in. We appreciate that. On the digital side, on TalkStream Live, on Revolution Radio, thank you so much for joining us. Also, we want to remind you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio for the show. My personal handle at Dave Scott SOR as well. Our archives are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What is it here? Foudroyant. Foudroyant is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, has a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and doing a little shopping and reading at Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, and right before the break, we were talking last half hour about the Wilson files. We're going to continue with this right now. Grant's website, presidentialufos.com. Grant, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
Grant, there's a lot of rumors out there that we're not done with the files. We're not done with the Wilson documents. There's something big that is brewing. We've heard stories that they're going to break this on the New York Times. Other outlets have stated that they are going to try and get it. Tim McMillan's been working hard on trying to get things done as well. Where do you see this going?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know there's 60 Minutes sort of group in Australia is trying to, has been working with James Rigney on this, trying to drag Ron Pandolfi into it. You've got some identification of groups inside the government, I guess, now that once it's been verified that it's a real document and it's coming from a reliable source like Eric Davis and NIDS, then everybody knows. Before, we were always sort of guessing at who's in charge, who's running the show and stuff. And even though I don't really know what they are because I've never read the document, people sort of now know names of groups and names of people in the government that were involved.
So do you think that when those names come out that this could be like almost like a WikiLeaks type of thing where we're going to see a lot of big names who are involved in this start to come out?
Yeah, well, there are the names that were released already. You just got to find out who's in those positions. So they're naming various positions that were involved in the back engineering and the control of the story and stuff like that. And so people are sort of putting those pieces together and putting pressure on whether it's, Macmillan or the New York Post stuff where they put pressure on the people in those organizations that you've been exposed here. And I think that's the main thing, is that it's been verified that these are actual groups that were part of the thing. Because before it was like everybody's guessing, it's the Navy, it's the Air Force, it's some black cabal down some dark alley, and that's what I always objected to people. Is people always had this conspiracy thing was, there's a dark cabal that's running the government and stuff like that. And I'm going, I don't think, based upon my experience of looking at government documents and going in there where there are no UFO documents and start reading other government documents, where I think that government is very, maybe not in the last 3 years, but is very sort of constitutional, where everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. There's like, I was in the government. I was with the university, which is government operated, and it's like everything's 6 different copies of the same document, and you've got 15 bosses, and there's 500 rules. That's the way the government is.
Grant, your Skype is acting up again.
Oh, shoot, again.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Better go by phone.
I'll call you on your phone. We're going to get Grant right back here in a second. We want to make sure we got good audio for this, everyone. We want to make sure we got good audio. So just bear with me on this, because we want to make sure that everybody gets a good listen to this. Grant Cameron, our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And, these documents...
Sorry about that.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to get a new computer or have this fixed. That's the first time it's ever happened twice. It usually only happens once a week. But
well,
anyway,
you know what? I mean, the main thing is it's aliens, Grant. It's always aliens.
It's aliens. Yeah, it's always aliens. It's that dark cabal down the back alley where they want you to go and chase. It's not the president. It's some secret cabal that's running the whole show. But anyway, so the government does work by a lot of rules and regulations, and I always said that you've had 14 U.S. administrations that have handled the UFO subject, 7 Republican, 7 Democratic, and they've all done exactly the same thing, which tends to indicate that whatever they're doing behind the scenes, everybody believes it's legal and constitutional, because if it wasn't legal and constitutional, someone would take a walk, and nobody's taking a walk. So they're playing by some sort of rules, and that's what the Wilson document shows. It shows what the rules are, what the organizations are, how this thing is moved, especially this guy at the end. And I don't know, because I really haven't read the document that much, but the end, it describes this one guy who got the briefing. And he's the guy that said, there's no abductions, and we're not doing any back engineering. We're not able to do it, which agrees with what Hal Puthoff said, what Kit Green said, what Jacques Vallée said. Almost everybody said the same thing, that we may have hardware and stuff, but we really can't make it work. So when you name that one guy who got the briefing and his position, then you basically know this is where they're operating, and you can start to put together a schematic of how the organization works. And guys like the New York Post or the New York Times or Washington Post will have contacts that will be able to go into those organizations and pressure those people, or you have the situation where people start to FOIA those organizations and start putting pressure on knowing where it is. Because until you know where the cover-up is and how the cover-up is run, you're just walking around in the dark. You're just throwing darts and you're not hitting anything. Now people know basically the structure of the UFO cover-up, and it should unravel from there.
Grant, for people who may not understand, why these documents are important, what is the purpose of them? Why are they extremely important to the field of ufology and where it's going and where it was?
Well, I worked on these guys. These guys are known as the Avery. So Eric Davis, the guy who wrote the document, was the chief scientist for NIDS. So when Bigelow brought in piles and piles of experts on various subjects, paranormal subjects, spent millions of dollars on this. Eric Davis was his chief scientist, and then Eric Davis went to become the chief scientist for Hal Puthoff, who is undoubtedly, to me, is the guy probably with the best information on what the black budget programs are in terms of UFOs. Whatever they are, Hal Puthoff will know. He's the guy, the go-to man. Between him and Kit Green, who's been involved, he's in this Avery as well. These guys have held top secret SCI clearances since about 1970. They've perhaps held top secret security clearances, SCI security clearances in the United States. They're very, very powerful people. They're not, guys off the street. And so I've always talked about these Avery guys, and now everybody's sort of come and got religious about this thing now about, Bob Bigelow and all these guys that work for Bob Bigelow and Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis and, John Alexander and Kit Green. Well, I was talking about these guys in 1989. I said, you should pay attention to these guys. It was called the Avery, and it was Bill Moore was doing it in the 1980s. So Bill Moore had all these guys. And basically, it was the same thing as the Tom DeLonge. They'd gone to Bill Moore and said, the guy knows who you're talking about. We're here from the government. And there were people in the government who wanted this stuff out. Not everybody in the government wants it out. The government is not one unified group. It's like, 500 different people all fighting about different things and trying to steal everybody's money and stuff like that. So the key thing is that Eric Davis is a key player. He's one of these Avery guys, even though he wasn't Avery. He knows all the Avery guys. He's dealt with all these guys for maybe 25 years. And these guys know what they're doing. I mean, these guys have been in the programs. They may not know the whole thing, but that's what the Avery was. They're people who had security clearances, high-level security clearances, who had come up against the UFO program and maybe had done a little bit on some part of the program or something like that. And they're just interested in finding out what this thing, how to get it. And they've sort of teamed up with each other. They talk to each other because they can trust each other. They have these security clearances. And at one point, I sort of knew some of the stuff they were talking about, and I would see some of the emails. And then I sort of talked about stuff that I, maybe been talked about, and they sort of cut me off. But these guys have been around. So when Eric Davis writes a document, Eric Davis is a very, very high-level guy. He's no slouch. He worked in intelligence, U.S. Air Force intelligence, in Korea when he was, I think, at university or just after he graduated with his PhD. He was chief scientist for Bigelow. He did an anti-gravity or anti-gravity thing. It was an anti-gravity or worm control thing for U.S. Air Force after he lost his job at NIDS. Then he was the chief scientist for Hal Puthoff. This is no low-level guy. This guy knows what's going on. In fact, in the interview with the New York Post, they asked him about this thing, and he said, what about the ASAP program? Oh, it shut down in 2012. Did they shut down ATIP in 2012? No, they didn't. It's still going? Yeah, it's still going. And he said, well, how do you know? Because I'm a contractor. You're a contractor on it? Yeah. And he's talking to Eric Davis. Yeah, I'm a contractor on it. Yeah, I don't get paid. I'm still a contractor on this thing. He is an inside guy. He knows what's going on. He knows how the whole thing works. You'll even hear him. Sometimes he'll be on, say he was on Coast to Coast at one time, and he said, I just want to let you know, the program was shut down in 1989. They couldn't figure out anything. They shut down the program. And that's when George Knapp says, oh, I know what the lead line on the story is going to be tomorrow. And that's the thing. He'll say things. He knows what he's talking about. He's no dummy. So when Eric Davis writes a memo to Bob Bigelow, and says, I'm talking to the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he says this thing's for real, and we have hardware, and we can't back engineer it, and this is where they run this thing. And because Eric Davis is this very guy who knows how the things works, so when he's talking to Wilson, it's like he's hearing this for the first time. When Wilson mentions an organization, Eric Davis knows what the organization, and he knows what questions to ask him. So you have 15 pages of one of the top scientists in this UFO field, and asking questions of the former head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff about the UFO situation. So it's very high level material. It's not, they're not talking about UFO sightings or anything. They're talking about how the UFO cover-up works.
Okay, so with the UFO cover-up, where does the core of secrets come into play?
Well, I'm not even sure what the core secrets is. I mean, the core story is maybe what you're talking about. So the core story was a story that was put out. Hal Puthoff, who of course is the top guy who knows what's going on in the black budget program. And there may be somebody higher, but he'd be one of the top guys. Maybe Pandolfi knows more or whatever, but Hal Puthoff's the top guy. So Hal Puthoff and Kit Green, who ran life sciences at the CIA, was the control officer for the remote viewing program. Who's now doing the DNA experiments on the UFO experiencers, is been in the UFO paranormal field since 1970. Him and Jacques Vallée, who's been in this thing, had his first UFO sighting in 1955, is one of the top theoretical guys about looking at the consciousness aspect and the UFO thing. So the three of these top guys, Hal Puthoff, Kit Green, and Jacques Vallée meet at a Denny's restaurant in the 1980s. And it's like today. It's like, there's all this garbage floating around, like what's real, what's not real. And so they come up with what's called the core story. And it's always been referred to as a core story. And it says, okay, there's all this garbage going around. What do we know for sure? And what they came up with the core story was, we are being visited. We're dealing with some sort of intelligence that is interacting with us, maybe extraterrestrial, whatever it is. Number two, we've got crashed material. We have recovered material. Number three, we can't figure it out. And that became known as the core story. And you'll hear that through the Pandolfi thing, where people talk about the core story. And Pandolfi actually agrees with that story. He says UFOs are real, and everything else is a techno scam. These people are all just scamming people for money and trying to get budget money and stuff like that. And we really don't understand it all that well. So that's the core story. But here it's more intricate. That if you look at Tom DeLonge talks about going to. He gets dragged into Lockheed Skunk Works. I think they set him up where they bring him into this barbecue where he introduces the president, and then they invite him to a skiff. I mean, he's a rock star, and he gets invited to a top secret Lockheed skiff, and he meets three top guys. It probably Justice was probably in the room. The head scientist was there, and later Robert Weiss from Lockheed comes in, and they're talking about UFOs, and that's when they make the plan, where he says, you guys aren't getting the story out. You're messing it all up. I can get the story out to the young people, whatever. And the one guy says, this might actually work. And then Robert Weiss comes out, and that's when they talk about consciousness. And as soon as he mentions consciousness, the head scientist says, now you're talking, and he wants to talk for 45 minutes about consciousness. So they set up Tom DeLonge. They move him out, the same as with Bill Moore. They set him up with these two guys outside the Pentagon, these intelligence guys. They set him up with the guy in NASA. They sent him to Ames. Then they sent him to this McKay, this general at Space Command. And then he eventually gets with McCaslin, the two-star general at Wright-Patterson, who ran the lab where they took the Roswell stuff. And he starts helping them, and they build this whole group of people. But there is this group of people that's always been around, like high level guys like Kit Green and John Alexander, all these guys that have been putting this stuff out. So it's an extremely important story, the Wilson thing, because it points out that it was all for real. It was always for real. That Stephen Greer, everybody else, nobody was making up stories. They were all telling the truth, and we now know the actual identity of some of the people and the organizations. And once you know what the organizations are, then you can sort of start to dig. And because it was written by Eric Davis, if it was written by anybody else, it wouldn't have meant anything. But Eric Davis was a guy who was very, very in the know. And I would say, except for when he starts talking about, the Nimitz where the UFOs were interfering with the military stuff. That's total garbage. Other than that, I would take anything that Eric Davis says, take it to the bank. This guy is he's an experiencer. He had a UFO experience when he was graduating in his graduation party. That's why he had so much happen at Skinwalker Ranch. When he went there, it was happening around him. He's like same as Gary Nolan's an experiencer. Jim Semivan's an experiencer. Jacques Vallée's an experiencer. Most of these people are experiencers who have had an experience and can't get out of the rabbit hole, and they're trying to figure it out. And so Eric Davis is very interested. He's a very, very smart guy, and he knows the some of the stuff that I'll drop will be more stuff about, when I die, when this stuff finally comes out, you'll see some more stuff. Eric Davis is a key player that knows what's going on. So you should pay a lot of attention to anything Eric Davis says or writes. And he doesn't BS around. He doesn't. If he doesn't want to talk about something, he'll say, "I can't talk about that. I'm not talking about it." But he basically talks about as much as he can, and I don't think he lies. He basically is a straight shooter in what he says.
We got about 3.5 minutes before we got to go to break here at the bottom of the hour, and Lee is asking in our chat room, who does the document verification process, or what is the documentation verification process?
In terms of what? I mean, the Wilson document?
Yes.
Or I don't know what documents he's talking about.
With the Wilson.
There's not going to be any verification. The verification of the Wilson document, because they're saying, it didn't come from Mitchell's files, and now Eric Davis, who wrote the document, says it came from the Mitchell files. So that confirms it's from the Mitchell files. And the other part was Hal Puthoff said that Eric Davis had the meeting. So what's in the document is basically Eric Davis having a meeting with the head of intelligence for Joint Chief, former head of intelligence for Joint Chiefs of Staff, in the back of a car behind the EG&G. So that part of the story is true. That's all you really need to know. It's not a top secret document. It's not a government document. This is what people have to realize. It's just a document from NIDS, a report to NIDS, to Bob Bigelow, who's paying the bills, and the reason it was in Mitchell's files, because Mitchell was on the board of NIDS. So he had all the reports that were coming in to Bob Bigelow, and I thought there was more, but there may not be any more documents. There had to be other reports, like on the Black Triangles, on Catholic relations. They did the Holloman Air Force Base film. They did hardware. They even came to me recently about hardware, about the Canadian hardware. What did the Canadians work on in terms of hardware? And that's the thing, is Bob Bigelow had the money, he had the interest, and he first started with near-death experiences, where I'm going. When he first started NIDS, the first meeting, he said, we're going to work on life after death, life after death, and UFOs. And the one scientist said, "Are you kidding me? Why don't we just do Sasquatch and ESP?" And you couldn't believe that he was saying this, because Bigelow's kid died and his grandson died at a very young age, and he's fascinated with life after death. He put $3.7 million into the University of Las Vegas, Nevada, into consciousness studies. He's really he realizes consciousness, all this stuff is linked together. He's just a guy who's got a lot of money, and his grandparents had a big UFO sighting, and he's really into it. And he brought in all these high-level experts from all sorts of fields who knew about UFOs, and he was picking their brains. And all these two documents, the alien autopsy document and the Wilson thing, are not classified documents. They're just reports that were given to Bob Bigelow at NIDS that were in the files of Edgar Mitchell, because Edgar Mitchell sat on the board of NIDS.
We've got about 1 minute here to go before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Okay, so with the Bigelow tie and everything, I mean, there's a lot of rumors out there that he actually found what he was looking for, whatever that message was, with trying to connect with his son and his that's on the other side, or wherever he may be. And then, because it seems like recently he's just walked away.
Yeah, well, I think part of the reason that he walked away may have been because that there was no money to be made. I mean, I've talked to a lot of rich people in the UFO field, and the one guy, a super rich guy, said to me, "How the heck do you make any money at this thing?" And Bigelow must have realized, he went after the thing, and he realized exactly what I keep saying, and Eric Davis said, and the core story said, we've got material, we got hardware, but we can't make it work. You need consciousness. They fly the ship with the mind. And when Bob Bigelow looked at that and said, I can't make any money at this thing. You go back to putting trailers on Mars and making a pile of money. You can't make any money at this thing until you understand the consciousness. It's sitting on the shelf. They can't back engineer this stuff.
Right. Okay. Hey, we want to give a shout out.
So Bigelow walked away because people making money.
We want to give a shout out to Good Canadian Kid at UFO Toronto on Twitter for listening on in Hogtown. Remember, the Stanley Cup still isn't coming your way. Hasn't since 67, but we love you listening on in. Yes, hockey's coming back, so we got to get the shots in while we can. More Space Out Radio with Grant Cameron right after this. Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. I could just imagine those Mississauga listeners. They're all over me because I crap on the Leafs as much as possible.
Good for you. Yeah, that's what we say in Winnipeg. We don't mind if we don't win the Stanley Cup as long as we beat Toronto once a year.
Oh, yeah. God, I hate the Maple Leafs.
Because we play them once a year, and it's like, oh, God, we got to beat these guys. Can't let Toronto win, no way.
Honestly, you know, when I covered the Canucks, man, literally when the Leafs would come into town, they would have one bus for the players. The second bus was for the media. And their media entourage would rarely even talk to the people in Vancouver because we were so beneath them covering the Canucks and not covering the legendary Leafs. Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. Except Bob Cole. Bob Cole.
Yeah, that's the thing, and then they wonder why everybody hates them. It's like the idea, you know, like now it's rafters. I mean, that's what I was saying with you know, you watch TS instead of Toronto, but I mean, it's Toronto, and then it's the Rafters, and then it's the Blue Jays, and they're not even playing, and it's like, oh my God. And it's okay. It's a big market, but still, I mean, if you got some respect. We got no respect in Winnipeg. It's like nobody even cares about anything. So.
Well,
but hockey's a big thing. It's a good thing though.
Oh yeah, I was walking down the hallway the other day, and my little guy gave me a shot, so I body checked him. He's like, "Dad, you got to let go." I'm like, "No." I said, "My shoulders are down, elbows are down." They said, "This is a clean hit, so get used to it." Then I gave him a cheap shot. I'm not gonna lie, I gave him a little cheap shot after that.
Yeah, well, it builds some character when you.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing people don't realize. Like they always talk about sports and stuff. I say until you've played a game where you change on the fly, where you're not sitting and standing around or whatever. I mean, it's the only game that changes while the play is going on. And when you're a defenseman and you go back to pick up the puck, you know you're going to get hit. You know you're going to get nailed. And like suck it up and go with it. I mean, and you see, it really annoys me when these guys start playing. You think a soccer game is broken out, like a guy you touch him and the guy goes flying down on the ice. And it's like, what the hell is this? What do you think this is, a soccer game?
Disgusting.
It's just in hockey. It's like if you break your leg, you're allowed to lie on the ice. Other than that, get up and go to the bench.
Exactly.
You know, guys will have cuts, like cuts where they get hit with a puck or something, and they go to the bench, or even if they, get a bad knee injury or something, they still make the bench, and the play just goes on.
Yeah. My son, when he was, when he'd go, like he just finished up his first year of hockey this year. And, when he'd get tired, he'd lie on the ice or whatever. And he was such a beginner out there, but it was so cute. And watching him improve was incredible. So, a couple times of practice, they'd call him over to the bench for a little squirt of water and all this. So, I'd meet my son on the bench and I'd look at him and I'd be like, "What are you doing on the ice?" He goes, I'm relaxing my legs. They're tired. I said, "Oh, so you want to go to the soccer field?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, then get up and stand up and be a man and play some hockey. Go learn what you're supposed to do." I said, the minute I see you lying on the ice, I said, "Daddy's getting you off the ice. We're going straight to the soccer field." "No, Dad, no." I'm like, "Hey, there's some rules here." I'm not one of those parents, man, when I'm at the rink, I'm not one of those parents who bitching out the coaches or whatever. I refuse. Okay. And I'm not one of those parents that puts a lot of pressure on my kid. But, if my kid is slacking off, absolutely. And I tell his coaches that, give him a little tap, put him into the boards, right? Toughen him up. Well, what if he cries? Then hit him again. Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's how you toughen them up. You know, I got 15. I still call them kids, but I got 15 players that I trained that played pro hockey, including in the NHL, man. And you know what? I pushed them. With a lot of love, but a lot of technique, and you know, just no pussying. Out. Oh yeah. There was nothing. I'll tell you, Grant. There was nothing better than watching these 15, 16-year-olds get ready for junior camp. And right before camp, they come out and they're like, hey, do you mind teaching me how to fight for camp? Okay, let's, then you have to give them lessons. One guy that I trained, he played 13 games with the Edmonton Oilers. And one game, oh God, I forget who he hit, but Big John Scott came over on the ice and just gave him a licking. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, you poor kid, right? All right, we've got about 1 minute. Excuse me. Yeah. Yes. Apparently, according to Michael Boyle on our YouTube chat, I look like Randy Quaid. I still haven't figured out if that's a compliment or insult.
Yeah. So the YouTube thing's working out good?
Oh yeah.
That's good. Because you're in a kind of a weird time zone, but you are the only Canadian outlet. So,
well, that's
my sister's complaining because she's a big coast to coast, and she had to now she's paying out of an American station or something. I go, oh, whatever.
I hear you, man. Hold on, boss. Here we go. By the way, Chuck in California owns a couple of radio stations. He's giving you a shot about the Jets too. But there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, he's a big Kings fan. All right, what the hell am I doing here? Here we go. All right, everyone, here we go. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Let's try and hit 150 tonight. 150 is what we want. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can do us a favor. Go to our YouTube channel. Check out our free archives. The only thing we ask for in return is you hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including Rockin' Out to Bumblefoot and... what's the other one? Oh, yeah. Read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and my personal handle at Dave Scott SOR. Grant Cameron is here. We're talking all things UFOs, from the Wilson documents to who's flying these craft. When are we going to get some aliens, Grant? When are we going to get some aliens? PresidentialUFOs.com is Grant's website. When's the aliens coming, Grant?
The more I look, the more I don't think it's aliens. I mean, that's where I might write this book, extraterrestrial or maybe not. I mean, you start looking at it and it's, if it's ET, it's some sort of interdimensional thing. It's like, I've sort of come to the conclusion that Jacques Vallée, someone quoted Jacques Vallée as saying it may just be a giant kabuki theater, and the only message is we aren't alone. I started looking, the more I look at it, the more I think, something's wrong here. The old idea where there's one book we made, the guy finally published a thing out of Israel, and his story was, these beings are in the room, and they give them the message of oneness. 54% of people get, and when they leave, they're like grays, except they're green. So you see, all the aliens are different. Even the grays. They put a presentation together, right? Put all the grays, and I have Ben Andreas' grays and he's great, Bernie Hill, and none of them look the same. They all just look completely different. And so the idea is that when this guy had these beings leave, they all grabbed hands, and they went around in a circle, and the circle went faster and faster and faster and faster, and they turned into a light then they turned into a ball of light, into this little tiny ball of light, and then disappeared. So I say, okay, so is it a ball of light or is it an alien? And if it's a ball of light, does it eat bacon, eggs, toast, and coffee in the morning? And you start seeing, that's where I get into this orb, where people will describe quite often, that the being comes out of an orb. There's a little orb comes, and the being comes out of the orb, and it goes back into the orb. And so that's why I'm saying it's a lot less physical than people think it is. It's definitely not a flesh and blood alien that's on a spaceship. They're using some sort of portal technology that's coming in, and a lot of them will say, even Sherry Wild, who I just interviewed again, Sherry Wild says to Da, who's the being, it's like a gray type being, she says, "Are you actually an alien?" And he goes, "No, not really." And she said, "You're not? Well, then why do you come as this ugly-looking gray thing?" And he said, "What do you mean ugly-looking gray thing? Do you ever look at yourself in the mirror?" And it's this thing. People start asking. Nancy Tremaine. A lot of people will ask questions. For example, they'll ask questions that, like, did it hurt? Did they probe you? All this kind of stuff. The questions I ask people are, how did the being come in? Did it ever get any older? And everybody says the same thing. No, it didn't get any older. But then aliens lived a long time. And it's like Betty Andreasen. I asked her husband. They had their first experience in 1946. It's now 2020. Did the alien ever get any older? No. And it's like, well, I mean, if we get older, like, why is this alien not getting older? Or I'll say to the people, I say, was it wearing clothes? And they go, no. I said, did it have any sex organs on it? No. Did it have a belly button on it? No. Did it have nipples on it? Nope. And you start looking, and it's like, well, how do they reproduce? So it's like, and you start seeing all these questions. Are the Betty and Barty Hill aliens? And it's like, they're wearing hats. Like, what, do they have a baseball team on Zeta Reticuli? You start seeing these things indicate maybe this is not what we think it is. Take a closer look. What is this really? And you start seeing really weird things that don't make any sense in terms of these aliens. It's when you get to the thing where they actually say they're not aliens, or they say that, you know, they don't have sex organs. Because you got to remember, back in the 1890s, we now say, oh, they're from Zeta Reticuli, and they're from Hera, and they're from, you know, and the, you know, the Pleiades and all this kind of stuff. In 1890s, the ships were completely different. They were wooden ships with propelled on them, and they're flying around. And the people that were in them were human type beings who were wearing very bizarre old clothes. This is 1890s, and then it turns to Foo Fighters. Then it turns to green fireballs. Then it turns to Adamski crafts, where Adamski comes. Now they're from Venus, and they're from Mars and from the Moon. And the one that the Canadians were dealing with was from Uranus. And now we don't believe that there's any living on these planets. So now they're from Zeta Reticuli, and they're from Pleiades. And the more I look at it, the more I think, nah, there may be some ET component to it, but no, especially when you start looking at the near-death experience thing, where the near-death experience people are reporting identical phenomena. Absolutely, there's no difference whatsoever. And you start looking at the idea, especially with this thing I mentioned at the beginning, was Ron Johnson goes into the spirit world, and he's basically, the aliens take him into the spirit world. Or I'll give you another example. You see all these things with dead animals, where dead people are brought on the ship, or the one guy they brought his dog on the ship, and he said, "What would they bring my dog? They're playing with me," because he didn't believe they could bring a dead dog back. I talked to Sherry Wild when I did the interview, and she said when she was 15 years old, she was on board the ship, and they brought. She said Albert Einstein was on the ship, and so was Tesla. And so was Albert Schweitzer, and then this woman from World War II. I can't remember her name was. She wrote the journals of World War II. And I said to her, Sherry, let me ask you a question. Were they actually physical? Because this is like they're all dead people. Were they actually physical? And she said, oh, I know where you're going with it. Let me tell you what. It may have been a hologram, but it looked pretty real to me. And you see this report over and over again about dead people on the ship. And that's what Whitley Strieber's wife said. When they wrote the book Communion, which came in like a download, she started to channel in the middle of the night. They were going to call it Body Pain. And then they said, no, we'll call it Communion because that's what it is. And when they wrote that book, there was hundreds of thousands of letters came in about that book. And that was before the internet. People actually had to write a letter. And she said, she walked out of the room, she said, Whitley, whatever we're dealing with, it has something to do with death. I would 100% agree. When you start looking at, that's what we do, the contact modalities. We just had this book. It was just released yesterday or the day before, whenever it was released. And we go through all the contact modalities. So I look at UFOs, I look at near-death experience, out-of-body experience, channeling, mediumship, tarot cards. I look at everything you can think of, all the weird stuff, and you start looking, and it's all the same thing. It's basically all the same thing. And so I call it contact modalities, and it's the ability to quiet the left brain, pick up the signal, get into the field, and whatever this is, it's happening in the field. Almost like Bashar, the famous alien channeler, says, "We come to you in your dreams because now you're in our world." And you get that where you get these people with the DMT. 25% report the abduction experience, and they're on a couch. So were they abducted? Or you get a famous painter like Akiana Kramark, who's a double prodigy in painting and in poetry, who does the famous painting of Jesus at 8 years old, and it's like worth like $5 million or whatever. It's just unbelievable painter. And she was gone. She was taken at 4 years old or 5 years old, and she said Jesus took her. But it was an abduction. It was a classic abduction. She disappeared from her house. They had police looking for her, whatever. She reappears in the middle of the hallway in front of a bunch of people. But she said Jesus took her. She was in the universe. Jesus was showing her the 1,000 faces and the quantum universe and all this kind of stuff and taking her for a tour of the universe. It's the same story. And you start seeing these crossovers, which means, as I said, it's going to be 1,000,000 times more complex than people think it is. It is definitely not straight ET. It is more complex. And I used to think Jacques Vallée was crazy. Jacques Vallée's been saying this forever. That is, it's this. You got to start looking at fairies. You got to start looking at all this other stuff. It's part of the manifestation. So when you get into an experience, you'll see people who are very fearful, who will see grays. And then you see people who are very enlightened, and they're going to see angel figures or energy beings and this sort of stuff. And that's what John Mack said to Bud Hopkins. He said in one debate, he said, "But, it's kind of strange, Bud." He says, "Isn't it kind of strange? I'm the psychiatrist. You think I'd be getting all the real bad ones, the real bad cases?" He says, "It's kind of weird. I'm getting all the spiritual seeking ones, and you're getting all the bad ones. Maybe that has more to do with you and I, Bud, than it does with the aliens." And it's this idea that you are part of the manifestation of what you're seeing. That we think the Earth is flat and the sun goes around and things are solid and there's colors. And it's the old thing when you start looking at reality. It's not what you think it is. It's like this giant quantum thing that the observer makes things appear and stuff like that. And that's what I start to see when quantum physics comes in. It starts to agree that the world is not what you think it is. It's much more complex. It's a lot more plastic than you think it is. And the beings are just able to come in, because they live in that world where it's very plastic, where they can make things change and they can do all that kind of stuff. They come in, they can do it, and we, like magical, we can do the same thing. We just have all these false assumptions that it's a physical world made out of nuts and bolts. We're biological robots in a random, meaningless universe. We're just affected by things outside of us, and none of this is going to be true. It's all going to be a completely different world than what we think it is.
Grant, a couple of questions from our audience here. First off, Overbuilt wants to know if you know anything about the Collins Elite faction, and can you fill us in if you do?
Okay, is that the CIA guys? Collins Elite?
I'm not sure.
Well, there is a faction that's talked about by Eric Davis. Talks about that very angrily. About this faction, that's what people got to realize. The government is not the government. There are people inside the government. Same as when I was at university. I mean, it's not a unified place. You have all sorts of agencies working against each other, trying to get the funding. It's all about getting the money or whatever. So if you have this group inside the government that basically shut down to ATIP, because they believed that this was demonic, and we're not going to allow the devil to come into the earth. And they basically have a lot of power, and apparently a lot of the big military guys and the big intelligence guys are these fundamentalist Christian guys who have this belief that the UFO stuff is the demons. And so that was the whole thing about fighting against these guys, that the people that are leaking it, I don't believe are like the official government. They're people inside the government. You have these two factions, one that's trying to cover it up, one that's trying to get it out. And that's where Lou Elizondo decided he was going to come out. And that's where Tom DeLonge said, I hired him away. So he knew who Lou Elizondo was. Hal Puthoff was reporting to Lou Elizondo, and he was working for To the Stars. So he tells Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge hires Lou Elizondo away, and they make that sort of defection out of the government. And that's what it is. It's people inside the government who are defecting, who are bringing stuff out. It's not unofficial sort of like government policy, because there are people in the government who are bound and determined that this is not coming out because they have a very demonic view of what this is about. And I think I remember even Chris talking about this, that there are people who actually believe that they're working towards the end of the world, because the Bible says there's going to be a big end of the world thing, and these guys are actually working to make this happen, that they want the end of the world to come because it's part of the Bible. And you got to realize it's people's belief systems that are in there, and not everybody in the government thinks the same way. You have these people that are competing against each other. And so I think a lot of what you're seeing is leaks coming out from factions inside the government who are like Jim Semivan and people like that, who've had experiences, who've had the beans in their room, and they're determined to try to get the answer, and they're willing to push to force this stuff out against people like these, very strict religious people inside intelligence who don't want it out.
All right, let's get to Steam Train's question here. He is asking, Grant, if the experiencers who have flown the craft believe that they actually have, is what they're saying on how it works similar?
It is like reading from a cue card. Absolutely. I'll give you an example. I was in LA. I was giving a speech to the Orange County. And the one guy didn't come to the lecture. He came, you know how they always have they go to a restaurant after. We go to the restaurant, and then this Dave guy comes in and said, Dave, you should have been there. Grant was talking about flying the craft. Tell him about how he flew the craft. And Dave says to me, was it Dave? Yeah, Dave. He says, oh, well, I think it was just a dream. I said, everybody says it's a dream. Everybody. And said, you flew the craft? He said, yeah. I said, sit down, tell me how you flew the craft. And that's what I say to everybody. I don't really prompt them, because I'm trying to track this. Are they all telling the same story? And basically, there's nothing different. Nobody says anything different. So he says, okay. He says, I go, and there's people behind me. Even this bizarre part of the story. And when you get the bizarre part of the story, that you're not going to make it up. They say, there's people behind me, but I don't know if they're humans or whether they're aliens that are behind me, and we're inside the craft, and I'm standing there in the middle of the craft, and then they say, okay, go ahead and do it. And then the person always says the same thing. I don't know what to do. And then whatever this is behind them says, you know what to do, just go ahead and do it. And so he said, I see this panel, and I go to the panel, I put my hand on the panel, and they all say the same thing. You see the panel, a flat panel, or it's a ball thing, or it's a screen on a wall. I've only heard that one time from a guy in Liverpool, England. Put a hand on a screen but you become one with the craft. So you're touching the craft. They all say the same thing. The craft is alive. Now you're not going to make that up. If you're going to make the story up, and they'll describe this thing like the craft is bigger on the inside. You like Chris Blesso said, he put it on a beehive, like a round thing. And he said he took his hand off, and he said you could see the like a CD-ROM where it had all these different colors on the metal flashing around, and you could see his handprint on there. And so this guy says, I put my hand on this flat panel, and he says, suddenly I'm flying the craft. I got my hands on this panel, and then he said it was just like flying an F-16. And I had gotten to him. I said, he said, I'm a pilot. I said, oh, you're a pilot. My father's a pilot. My son's a pilot. What did you fly? And he said, oh, I flew this and that. And he said, F-16. I said, you flew F-16s? And he goes, yeah. I'm a retired U.S. Air Force colonel. I flew in Iraq. And I go, oh, tell me your story. So he tells me the story. And he says, I'm one with the craft. This is the key. I'm one with the craft. Me and the craft are the same thing. The craft is alive. I become one with the craft. And whatever I think is what the craft does. And Melinda Leslie has a bunch. I've got 50 people. There's nobody ever said, oh, there's a little stick. You fly this little stick. Even the song Cat Stevens. Cat Stevens, from 1970s, famous musician, he had an abduction experience out of England. He was on a roof. He tells the story. He was on a roof. He was sucked up into the UFO, and he writes two songs. One's called Longer Boats. One's called Freezing Steel. I was on the ship. This is 1972. He wrote this song. I was on the ship of freezing steel. the ship without the guiding wheel. There is no flying saucer wheel. There's no thing. You put your hand on a panel and you become one of the craft and whatever you think. So what this Air Force guy says, he's got both his hands on the panel and he's just blown away. He said it's like suction cups on an F-16, whatever that is. And he said, so I put my one hand off the panel, and he said, I'm still flying the craft. Whatever I'm thinking was what the craft does. And then he says, I took my second hand off the panel, but I left it 6 inches above the panel so I could slam it back down if the craft stalled out. And he said, I took my second hand off and I'm flying the craft. Talking to this Ron Johnson guy who was taking his spirit world. And he said that was his job. They told him that was his job to fly people to this thing. So he said, I said, okay, tell me how you do it. So he said, I'm sitting in this chair and they tell me to put my hand in this thing on the chair. And he said the chair like it was built for me. It was perfectly fit me as if it was built for me. And then they said, where do you want to go? And he said, I'd like to see the Milky Way from a distance. And he becomes one of the craft. The craft is alive, and they said it's going to be a very intense G-force for about 1 second. And he says he said unbelievable G-force for 1 second. And he said the window opened up, and he looked, and there was the Milky Way in the distance, and he was out there in 1 second. Had a guy, San Francisco, United Airlines 747 airline pilot. Same story. I'm flying the craft. I'm one of the craft, and I think it's what the craft does. Whatever as fast as I want, I can do whatever. Everybody tells the same story. And if you're going to make up a story, you're not going to say what I say to people. I say, how do you fly the craft? And they say, oh, you do it with your mind. I mean, you're not going to make that up. That doesn't make any sense. The first time I heard that, it was a woman in her 70s in 2013 in Phoenix. I was ready to tell her, woman, you are absolutely insane. Come on, especially a woman, because a lot of the people that fly the ship are women. And it's like if you're a Saudi Arabian woman, until about a year ago, you couldn't drive a car. It was illegal to drive a car, but if the aliens abduct you, they'll let you fly with no insurance, no license, nothing. You just fly the craft. And so when this woman in her 70s told me she was flying the craft, I go, you were flying the craft? And she said, yeah, I flew it. I said, they let you fly the flying saucer? And she says, yeah, I've flown 3 different models. And it was like, and you hear these people telling these stories, and they're straight as can be, and they all say the same thing. Put your hand on a panel, come on with the craft is alive, whatever you think is what the craft does. It's exactly the same story. Identical, like reading off a cue card.
That's insane. And
I got 50 people, not 1 or 2, I got 50 people.
50 people.
In fact, the free survey, Edgar Mitchell free survey shows that 14% of all the experiencers who answered the question said they'd flown the craft. I went to the free people and I said, we should talk to these people. And they said, well, people report all sorts of stuff inside the craft. I go, yeah, okay, if they're in the craft, they're reporting. But when they start flying the craft, don't you think we should talk to these people? 14% of people say they've flown the craft. This is hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'll guarantee you they're all going to say the same thing.
I'd love to fly the craft.
Yeah. It's bizarre. And I didn't hear it until 2013. I didn't know any such thing exists. As I said, I was going to tell this woman, get out of the house here. You're insane. I thought she was nuts when she first brought this up.
Now, those 3 models that lady said she flown, were they domestic or imports?
No, this is the beings. She says, I always hear this all the time. No, we don't have this technology. There's no way we have this consciousness technology of going here and outside the solar system, outside the Milky Way in 1 second. We just don't have this, or the technology where it's 10 times the size inside as it is outside. And that's Terry Lovelace has reported that. Chris Bledsoe reported that. There's a lot of experiencers who report this bizarre thing where it's way bigger on the inside than it is outside. That's completely non-physical reality. And when you see it in the spirit world, that's when you start to wonder, is this person actually inside a flying saucer, or are they in some sort of alternate reality which is similar to being in the spirit world? Maybe it's not really the physical abduction experience that we think. And that's in the Wilson document. In the Wilson document, there are no abductions, and it looks totally crazy. But I remember Kit Green, and I've got the quote from Kit Green on Above Top Secret board or whatever in 2007 said the same thing. And so the question is, maybe we're not looking at this the right way, because when you start asking about the aliens and what they look like, and do they have sex organs, do they get older, and this kind of stuff, you start to see all these sort of like red flags that say, man, maybe it's not what we really think it is, or they turn into balls of light and they this kind of stuff. You start thinking it's not the physical thing that we think it is. So yeah, to me, it's all alien technology. I don't think we really have. We may have some consciousness technology. We may have something. Cause, I'll tell you a story. I've been honored to be able to meet Tyler D. from American Cosmic. You interviewed Dan Pasolka. Yes. So her main guy was Tyler D. Now, I've met the guy. I had a meeting with him, and I had a phone call with him. And I was in a meeting with him, with Chris Bledsoe was in the room. We were at a cottage in Pennsylvania, and I'm talking to him, and he had a download experience. That's how he became very famous. He had a download experience. He said, the last thing I remember the night before I got that idea in my head, that he sold for millions of dollars.
Hey, Grant.
And then
we gotta get going here at the top of the hour. We got Grant Cameron for another 30 minutes in hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio. Then we got the SOR News Wire and the Thought of the Day. More Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. All right, there we go. I'm just going to step away for a minute here to take my dogs out. I'll be right back, okay?
Yeah, okay.
All right, bud.
Hey, space travelers. This is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night, where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting.
Good.
Okay, buddy.
Turn off speaker.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, man. We got like 131 people watching right now.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. All for Mr. Grant Cameron.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you're in the Eastern time zone, you'd be, all Eastern people gone to bed. I feel sorry for them sometimes doing these shows like, getting up in the middle of the morning, although.
Oh, I don't.
When I do my show, a lot of times you hear the British people, like you got British people now. It's like, I guess it would be 7 in the morning, but I mean, they start listening at 4 in the morning. I mean, that's pretty brutal.
Oh yeah. Well, we're starting to get a bunch of people in the UK waking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to listen to the show.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. I've got a lot of UK people on my rabbit hole thing too. It's like really weird. They're kind of into it, those guys.
Yeah.
And yet they don't have any conference except for that Manchester. That's all they really got is that Manchester conference.
Well, I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a different world where you can sort of broadcast around the world and.
Weird. Still weird.
Yeah, I got to finish that story with Tyler D because he's kind of a key story about a key guy who is in the Cosmic Club or whatever the hell they call that thing. He's one of the key guys. I think that Tom DeLonge is tied in with him, or he gets very upset when people mention his name, or he gets so outed. But
oh well, let's mention.
He made $100 million. He sold his company for based upon an idea that an alien put in his head.
All right. We got about 90 seconds left. I'm sorry, Grant. I've been going. I've been doing the two job thing is kind of it gets me sometimes.
Yeah. Identification. I got my DNA with a girl who channels a reptilian. Be pretty cool. She should have the kits. Like she's gonna get the kits any day.
Oh my goodness. Channeling reptilians? Oh, that can't be good.
I did Nancy Trump's book. She thinks they're the greatest people going. Betty, what's her name? The abduction woman. She had contact with the reptilian. She thought they were great too.
All right. Hi, Janet in Ohio. Hi, Fitness Girl. Hi, Justin. Pharmacy, thanks for coming on in. New listener to SOR. Hi, Janet. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. We'd appreciate that. And if you haven't given us a thumbs up yet, anybody out there who's listening in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up as well. Super Chat is open. The lovely and talented Grant Cameron is with us. You know, this is a guy who still plays hockey with a straight stick, no curve on it. Going back to the old school.
That's true. Yeah, we didn't have curved sticks.
Oh, yeah.
People don't realize the world is different.
I know.
Everybody thinks everything is the way it was. It's like,
all right, here we go with the third hour here, guys. Let's have some fun. Music is on.
To connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Let's do this thing. Let's kick off the third hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us wherever on this beautiful planet you are. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and on the digital side on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Foudroyant Foudroyant is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and follow up on all music from our main man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal. And follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio for the show, along with my personal handle at Dave Scott SOR. For the final time tonight, we introduce Grant Cameron. He is the man, the myth, and the legend all wrapped into one when it comes to researching UFOs. Presidential UFOs is his website, if you want to check that on out. Now, Grant, right before the break, you were talking about Diana Pasulka and Tyler D when it comes to UFOs. Fill us in.
Yeah, so this is this idea about what kind of technology. They may have some consciousness technology, because what he told me, and he didn't say anything about it, he just pulled out his cell phone and he said, "What do you think of this?" He said, "It's painting." And I posted it a few times, asked people, "What do you think?" Because I wanted to see, if people could guess, And what it is like two guys, like in one guy is older, one guy
Hey, Grant, your phone is breaking up pretty bad. Can you move? I don't know where you are in your house or not, but just wondering if you could see if we get a clearer feed here.
Okay, hang on.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, let me.
There we go. Now you're beautiful.
Is it better?
You're beautiful now.
Okay. I'm still beautiful. Okay. So I go to Tyler D shows me his phone, shows me this painting. I have no idea what the painting is all about or whatever. And he just says, "What do you think about it?" He doesn't say good, bad, wood, indifferent. Then he shows me a second painting, and it shows all these balls, big balls going into small balls, all into the middle. So what do you think of that? And I'm like, I don't know. And then he shows me 3 paintings on a wall of this eclipse. And I have no idea. And then he shows me, he says, "You know where this is?" I said, "No." He says, "Hughes Aircraft Building in LA. And I go, "Whatever." And he said, "You know where that is?" I said, "No." He said, that's where the jump room was. And I go, "Oh, really?" I said, "Where's this painting?" He said, "Outside the elevator." And I said, the elevator that they use for the jump room going to Mars with Barack Obama and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this is like, I never believed this story. But then it's this guy showing me these paintings. Then he shows me, and he says, "Well, look at this." And he shows me a car. There's between these two buildings, it's 999 Sepulveda Avenue in LA, the Hughes Aircraft Building. And there's 2 buildings that converted them into office buildings. And in between these 2 buildings, they have a car parkade. And on the top floor of the parkade, he shows me this. It's a 56 or 57 Chev. And he says, "Look at this." He said, "Look," and he's got this photograph, and this photograph into the back seat of the car. And there's this postcard on the back seat of this car. And he said, on the card, it says, this guy, something about his girlfriend, and "I wish I could travel through space to be with you," and stuff like that. And I go, "Really? That's what the postcard says?" And he goes, "Yeah." And yet he didn't say it was real. He didn't say it wasn't real. He just said, "So what do you think about this?" And when he showed me that thing and then told me it was the jump room building, I'm thinking, my God, this guy's a high-powered guy. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something to this story. So I may say that they may have some sort of consciousness technology they develop. But in terms of hardware, I don't really think it. I think they even asked Hal Puthoff about the secret space program, and he said, No, I understand people are talking about it, but I've never seen any evidence for it. And I think Hal's a pretty straight shooter guy that he's telling the truth. So they may have some conscious technology, but in terms of crafts that are 10 times the size inside than they are outside, or crafts where you put your hand on a panel and you can be outside the Milky Way in 1 second, I just don't think we have that kind of technology.
All right, Grant, what should we be looking for coming up here in ufology? I mean, here we are kind of in a stalemate ever since the 3 Nimitz videos came out. There's been a lot of government talk about this. There's been a lot of government preaching about that we need to know more. There's a lot of talk about this all being an aerial threat. Tom DeLonge has gone heavy on the threat phenomena, and yet others say, well, what threat? show us where the threat is. You know, where are we going with this entire topic and narrative that is currently being played out?
Okay, well, again, it depends on who you're talking. Everybody's working for their own motives. So that's one thing I disagree with Eric Davis. He said, like with the Nimitz thing, he says, they were interfering with our military things, and we got to do something about this. But he's working for the military, and if you're the military, you need contracts, and you're not going to get a contract. You're not going to get any money unless you make this thing out to be a threat. So the Nimitz, the real story of the Nimitz was Jacques Vallée's version is it was a UFO sighting 15 years ago. It's time to get over it. That's all it was. It was a UFO sighting. End of story. Just because it's military doesn't make it any better. And they sat for 1 week. That was part of the story. I think Eric Davis told that story, that the thing was hovering there for a week until they finally said, here we are, come chase us. And then finally after a week, they picked it up on radar, and they went and, they were, these poor UFO guys are out there fishing or sightseeing or whatever, and they get attacked by F-18 jet fighters. And so they went out there, and they haven't been back since. So they were no threat to anything. But if you're in the military, you've got to have a threat aspect. Otherwise, you're not going to get any money, because during the Obama administration, when Hillary Clinton was involved with John Podesta, and they were pushing the thing with Leslie Kean. If you look at Leslie Kean's book, she promoted it as, there's a threat to airline traffic, and I guess Congress just laughed at them and said, get out of here, this is nonsense. So you make this threat thing. So they would play that thing. If you take To the Stars, what they're doing, and they've actually come back to me with another offer, this thing about they want to do this documentary thing and they want me involved. And I said, no, I don't want to be involved. And this is Ron Pandolfi. And what I was told is that Ron Pandolfi's in there, and they're trying to promote a documentary on, I think, Joe Firmage. And I said, whatever, I'm just not involved. I'll help you with whatever you want. And I'm talking to the producer. I'm not talking to Ron Pandolfi, disinformation guy. I'm talking to the producer. And he says, Jim Semivan's in here, and he's promoting alien abduction documentaries and pushing this stuff. So what they're trying to do is probably the right thing to do, is you put it through Hollywood. So if you remember the Bob Bigelow interview from 2013 with George Knapp says, are you interested in disclosure? He said, no, I'm not interested in disclosure. I'm interested in confirmation. That's what they did in New York Times. That's what they did with the Nimitz video. They leaked the material in order to get confirmation. Yes, this is for real. And what they told Trump was, yeah, this is for real. These are UFOs. We don't know anything beyond that. But we can assure you these are not ours. They're not the Chinese. And Trump says, I'm not interested, which is true. He's just not interested. So basically, what Bigelow said is you go confirmation, and then a couple of years later you can start to talk about aliens. So that's what's going to start coming in Hollywood. You've moved, you've done the confirmation, you've talked about the threat stuff, which appeals to getting the money, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to move the program out of the black world, because that's what you see in this Richard Doty interview that I just released today, is that Richard Doty said they're taking pieces of material to help put off the get, and he couldn't figure it out, because that's what you do in a science. You take a big problem, you break it into little pieces, and you give it to all different people who are experts at different things, and you try to analyze it. But you can't analyze the UFO thing, because you take all these little pieces and you put them in, and they all get stovepiped, and nobody's talking to anybody, so nobody knows how the craft works, because nobody's got the whole craft, nobody's working on it. So if they can get the money out, and if they can get it financed in the white world, then people can talk to each other. That's what they're trying to do. And the Hollywood thing is what they're trying to do is raise consciousness in terms of, they're going to start talking about aliens and what's behind the UFO stuff in the Unidentified series to use year 2, 3, and 4 or whatever. They move away from the fact there's just UFOs into the stuff that they know that they've got bodies and stuff like that. They're going to start leaking that stuff out, which is what moves it, because what you need to do is move the skeptics, who, if you go straight to someone's face, they're going to tell you get lost. But if you put it through a TV show, everybody's watching it and they think, this is garbage, and I'll have a good laugh and I'll watch this show, and everybody's getting subconsciously programmed through Hollywood. So that's what they're doing. They're going through the mass media. That's where Tom DeLonge was brought in, and that's this idea that you put it through mass media and you just slowly raise consciousness and acclimatize people, which does work, because we used to think that the stock market would melt down, all the religions would go crazy if we said it was for real. And the New York Times said it's for real. The UFOs are being investigated by the U.S. government, and everybody just went, yeah, I knew that already. Big deal. Nobody did anything. Nobody jumped off a building. It was completely clean. And that may be what disclosure is. They disclosed, yes, UFOs are real. That's all we really know. We know UFOs are real. We've got these films. We've got this kind of stuff. But in terms of figuring it out, and you may have actually seen disclosure now, there is no big story for the government to release, because in the end, I think the government knows a lot less than people think it knows.
I don't know about that. I mean, if they have crash retrieval, if even just one of these rumors about contact grant is real, that is a massive, massive story that they're hiding. You know, I don't think there's a lot of people who know. Okay. I don't think there's.
Oh, no. Yeah, but what's the story then? I mean, they've got craft. They've already said that. Hal Puthoff said that publicly. They basically said that there is hardware. Hal Puthoff even went public on with George Knapp and said there's a document about crash saucers that's real. He didn't identify what it was, but he said we can't figure out how they got it out. But there's a story. There's a one that's actually for real. And now you have this Wilson thing. I mean, it hasn't really moved the needle. I mean, it basically says, yeah, we've got crafts. There are no abductions. All this kind of stuff, and it's been confirmed that this is the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff who's talking about this stuff, and the document is real, and it moves so slowly. And in terms of especially when you get the technology of the consciousness thing, where you fly it with the craft, you fly it with the mind, and it's bigger on the inside. So and then this thing with the argument where you get Eric Davis. If you see this inside stuff where Eric Davis is fighting, and you got Jacobson, or the guy who won the Nobel Prize for superconductivity in this discussion, and all these high level full of it, and they're fighting, and it's like, if these guys are fighting about levitating a piece of metal, a little tiny layered piece of metal, they ain't got nothing. I mean, there's no way, because Eric Davis is going to know. Hal Puthoff's going to know what the black world has got, and that's what they say. That's what Pandolfi says. That's what the core story is. We've got it. We can't. Eric Davis went public and said, we've got material, yes, but we've shut the program down because we can't figure it out. So they may have some ideas. There's consciousness involved, or they're coming through wormholes or whatever. But in terms of real hardware that they have, I mean, I may be wrong, but I'd have to see it. I've looked at, you got to remember, I've dealt with these guys. I was dealing with these guys and talking about these guys in 1989. Everybody's just gotten on the bandwagon in the last couple of years. I followed these guys for years and years, and I've never seen any of them that said, yeah, we have some real hardware and we're flying this stuff around. They basically, these guys would know, and they don't seem to know. I've listened to everything they've said. That's the John Alexander, the notes that I'm going to release, 26 pages. They actually say, and they're having a discussion in one of these things where they're talking back and forth, and these are handwritten notes, and they said, are we to believe that, you know, we're not getting anything, that this is it's all going into a black hole? And then the one guy says, yeah, that would be kind of the answer. And the guy says, well, I know somebody whose job it is to destroy all the material, an Air Force guy. And these are top secret SCI guys. And this thing, that we're going to put this thing out, and it's pretty direct that they have no idea. They know that Bobby Rainman may be running the back engineering program. That's all they have on the page. That's all they really got. So if they had it, I think I would have heard one of them say it. And in 30 years, I've never heard anything that convinced me that there's a lot of bravado. There's a lot. We won the Vietnam War. We won the war in Iraq. We're the greatest in the world. There's a lot of military bravado about what we've got. But in terms of except for that thing with Tyler D. When Tyler D. showed me that stuff, he was so high level. And when he told me that, and he didn't say it was for real, but when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, maybe that story's for real. I was starting to think that jump room story may be true, that we're moving people on this technology where we're able to, whatever it is, move people psychically around. Because otherwise, why would he show me that stuff?
Michael wants to know, what is the real document Hal Puthoff is talking about, according to you?
The real document? Well, he's talked about a document he said and he let it slip. He said there's a document that has leaked out that is legitimate. It talks about crash flying saucers, and it's legitimate. So Linda Howe was working with him, and I said, Linda, ask him, what's a document? What document he's talking about? He's never identified it. I don't know if anybody's really pushed him on it, but he did say it in public that there is a document that deals with crash flying saucers, and it's a real document. It's a legitimate document, and I can't figure out how they got it out. which indicates that he knows. And I've heard rumored stories about Hal knowing generals that have touched the craft, and I've heard all these kind of stories. But in terms of the technology stuff, I've except for the Lazar thing, the Lazar thing, but the Lazar thing, that's a whole nother interview. That was basically a setup. They told him exactly when the test was being done, and they tested this thing in front of him. But why would they tell this guy? He was only on the base 6 times or 7 times. That's why his WTO only had $500 or $900. I mean, he was never on the base. So why would they tell the guy when the test was? So he bring his buddies out there. They wanted him to know when the test was. He didn't have it's a need to know program. He said he couldn't talk to the guy sitting across the table from him. I mean, if he couldn't do that, why would they tell him when the test was? Because they wanted him to see and make him think that they had this kind of stuff because they wanted the story out. So.
But do they, Grant, do they really want the story out there? Because right now it's still such a big ball of confusion.
That's what they want. But if they wanted to kill the story, they do it the Canadians. As I said, I've done this for 45 years. I have no idea what the Canadians. I have no idea where to go, what agency to talk to. I have no idea because they don't talk about it. The story goes away if you stop talking about it. So the Americans would not be talking about it unless they wanted it out. They're putting this stuff out. They've contacted me. As I said, I've been given 2 offers to do a documentary, to be a host of a thing on a documentary in Hollywood. I said, I don't do that kind of stuff. It's just not me. I don't want to. I said, if you want me to help you and whatever they're going to do on the Avery, they're going to do a story about the Avery, about all these guys, Richard Doty and Collins and John Alexander and all these Bird guys, and they were going to do a documentary, and they wanted me involved in that. I said, I'm willing to help you. Oh, we'll give you executive producer. I said, I could care less about executive producer. So I've been contacted about this kind of stuff. I know they want this stuff out, but they want it out with plausible deniability. So it always has a trap door in it, where it's partly true, partly false, and there's 3 different stories going around. They want the confusion because it can control the cover. If you put out one clean story, one clean document, and one clean statement, it's all over. You lose control of the story. This way, they can still control the story because nobody really knows what it is, except that they have UFOs and everybody's trying to guess what they've got. That's what they want. They want mass confusion in order to continue to have plausible deniability and control the story.
All right. So if there is a story to be controlled, is it the fact of fear? Is it the fact of the military-industrial complex?
Well, the part of the story is going to be that they don't know. That's what they're trying to cover up, and it's the game of playing the cards. I always say the game it's a game of bluff poker. They're just sitting at the table with the Russians and the Chinese, and they're working on it as well. And so, if you want to say what you've got, the Chinese say, "Put your cards down. Let me see your cards, and we'll put our cards down." And the Americans put their cards down. And they go, "Oh, we changed our mind. We're not going to thank you for the piece that we needed," and they walk away. So it's this game. You're up against the Russians, and you have this fear. I mean, there's all these enemies, and the Mexicans are enemies, and everybody's an enemy, and we're the military, and we got to protect the United States of America, and therefore we got to keep this all secret, and we can't tell anybody what we have, and we're trying to figure out what the Russians have, and it's that part. But part of it would be the ignorance that they really don't have as much as people think they have, and they're working towards it because it's a military thing. You don't want to put if any little thing they've figured out, any little technology they put it out, it's the old deal. Like, you're not going to see that technology for 30 years. We didn't see the stealth for years after it was built. And it's always the thing that we're using it for weapons. And that was what Trump made the speech the other day. And that's what Wilbert Smith said in 1959 when he went, took his thing, he took this gravity control thing the aliens were helping him build, and he went to the government, and the government said, write it down. He said, I'm not going to write it down. And he went home, and his wife said he took it apart. He never said another thing about it until he died. And he said, it's better they didn't have it. They're probably going to make bombs with it as well. And the other day, Trump said, we're now going to Mars, and we've got great weapons. We've got weapons. I've seen them and stuff. It's the old deal. They're going to turn it into weapons. It's the idea. There's all these enemies, and we need to build weapons, and we need to protect this, and we're not going to give it to the Chinese. So that's what the secrecy is about. I can understand the secrecy.
We've only got about 90 seconds left for you tonight, my friend, and I want to say this show flew on by as it usually does with you. What's next on the Grant Cameron agenda?
Wow, I'm just swamped. I'm doing this Orbs thing. I'm just totally inundated with this unbelievable Orbs story that I think is going to have some pretty interesting stuff, discoveries. I'm doing the book on extraterrestrial. I just released the book on contact modalities, which looks at some really bizarre paranormal things. And I think I understand how this all works. Just how do you get in the field? How do you do all this kind of stuff? I'm going to release the Beyond Managing Magic book, which was because I'm the first one to out Tom DeLonge and what he was doing and Jim Semivan and stuff. And this was the second book that we pulled last year. I'm going to put that book and then the alien documents, where I'm going to through all these documents. And I'm doing a Ports and Manifestations, which is another thing that I've got where around UFO experiencers, you're going to, if you say to them, do you ever have anything fall out of the ceiling or move around or disappear? It's like absolutely common. It's like every single one. Hitchhiker phenomena, Skinwalker. That's what Skinwalker was. The whole Skinwalker Ranch was all a port and manifestations. And that's, they're really interested. How do you make something go through a wall? How do you make something disappear and reappear in another spot? And it's that paranormal stuff. And so I'm doing a whole book on it, and it's unbelievable. And it goes through physical mediumship and all these people and psychics and UFO experiencers, and it's happening all over the place. People are all doing the same thing with this stuff appearing and disappearing, and it's all the same phenomena. It's all consciousness. The world is made of consciousness, not of nuts and bolts. And when you get to understand that, you start to understand what all this paranormal phenomena is about. It's linked to consciousness. The world is built out of consciousness.
Thanks, Grant. Appreciate that. Okay. Grant Cameron, everybody. Coming up next, we got the Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Freaking awesome, as per usual, my friend. Grant Cameron, everybody.
Yeah.
Grant Cameron, YouTube. Give yourself, come on, get in that chat room and clap for Grant. So that way when Grant looks at it, he can see all of you clapping for him. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Grant Cameron, everybody. Love it. Love it.
Thank you, Dave.
My friend, we'll talk soon, okay?
Beautiful. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye. I love him. I love him. It's fantastic. Grant Cameron, everybody. God, he's good. He's so good. He's so good. Oh, shit. I got to prepare for the news. Mm-hmm. Getting the news ready. Getting the news ready. True. The news has to prepare for me butchering it. Yes. Let's see, there's 5 stories. Let's see, what's this one? Mm-hmm. There's 6 stories. Yeah, let's go there. There's number 7. We need 1 more. See if we can find a Canadian one. What is this story? Oh, that's a good one. Let's go with this one. There we go. That feels good. That feels good. I think we're ready. I think we're ready for the news. I need someone to design some t-shirts for me. So if you have designing skills, let me know. Yes, but what I need is I need someone to help me design some t-shirts that we could print. The artwork is fantastic, though. All right, here we go. We're going to get to the news here. Let's have a good finish to the show, shall we? There we go. Ooh, the thunder. Feel the thunder. Lightning and the thunder. Oh, it's some music, too. All right, here we do it. Oh, we've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. I want to remind all of you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. If you're not following us on Twitter just yet, why not? Why not? At Spaced Out Radio for the show. My personal handle, at Dave Scott SOR. Speaking of the news, it's that time again. Fire it up, Captain. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the ufological. All right. We got a few SpaceX type stories here coming up right off the bat. Some people watching the live stream of SpaceX, they believe they spotted flying objects that aren't SpaceX's rockets that was carrying the two astronauts. That's right. Some viewers think they actually clocked some UFOs at various points of the live stream, with one person sharing a clip from the event on Twitter writing, "Did y'all see the hashtag UFO on camera today? Watch this. We just saw it. This is us recording from our TV. Space Launch Live, SpaceX." Someone else said, "Did anyone see those flashing lights as Dragon separated from the module out in space? Possible UFO?" Another tweeted, "I saw at least 3 different UFOs that did not resemble or move like space debris during the SpaceX launch." Oh, this is good stuff. Good videos. Now, UFO expert, really? Who is Pedro Ramirez? And how is he an expert? Anyways, anybody who calls themselves, first off, for all our listeners out here, let's get to some education purposes here. Now, this may be the writer calling him an expert, okay? But for any UFO researcher who calls himself an expert, immediately you know they're not an expert. All right? So we really can't say much about this. We'll use his quote here. He says, May 30th, 2020, so far 2 UFOs have been detected during the launch. The first of them can be observed very closely to the stratosphere. The next one seems to be closer to the Crew Dragon. However, we are still checking the captured material from the ground by the fans. During the mission's development, we will be looking out for everything that could arise around UFOs in space, especially those who may come into close time of coupling with the ISS. It's time to believe. You know, I want to know who this guy is. I want to know who he is. Never heard of him. Never heard of him. That may sound bad because, you know, a lot of people out there haven't heard of me. So it's probably fair. It's tit for tat right there. It's tit for tat. All right. Flat Earthers bared the brunt of a few jokes online made by people who pointed out the live images of SpaceX's launch to prove the Earth is round. Users on Twitter couldn't resist after Saturday's historic launch from the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, where live images beamed back to Earth showing the Dragon crew capsule in orbit against the curvature of the Earth. Twitter user known as The Noggin wrote in a post directed at the movement saying the footage was indisputable because it was completely live. Hey, hashtag Flat Earth. We just launched 2 Americans into space completely live with tons of live footage. Absolutely no way it could have been fake. Suck it, flurfs. Whatever that means. What's a flurf? Oh, flat earthers. Okay, I get it. Tweeted the user. Anyways, and yeah, so they were pretty upset. The old Noggin there. Yeah, he's a former jarhead, so, you know, that makes sense. That makes total sense. But Twitter went actually crazy on this, and good for them for doing that. Another user who identified as Pappy and tweets under the handle called an animated image of a young child having a temper tantrum, and he quoted Flat Earthers after watching the SpaceX launch. Another user on Twitter went so far as to include video footage of the SpaceX stage separation with the Earth in the background clearly looking round. Flat Earthers must be so confused right now. Hashtag SpaceX. And then, it just gets going from there. As others took their turn at delivering a good dose of ridicule, astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, Bob and Doug, not Mackenzie, arrived at the International Space Station Sunday when they were joined by the mission's commander, Chris Cassidy. Now, what really upsets me is the ISS flew over my house and it was cloudy. I could have seen this. I would have woken up for it. But no, Mother Nature, as per usual, has to play her little tricks and keep her beautiful sky cloudy, so can't see anything. It was the first time SpaceX, the private aerospace company founded by billionaire Elon Musk, had launched a manned mission into space. It wasn't long before Twitter users known as the Flat Earther dug in their heels and restated the movement's belief by tweeting the questions, "Why do you think Earth is a globe?" Because it's round, people. It is round. That's where we're going to keep that one for right now. Now, SpaceX launched its most precious cargo to date into space, to NASA's astronauts, and a plush sequined dinosaur toy. Now, if you haven't heard this story, it's actually pretty cool. So, it's the first time a commercial spacecraft, obviously, carrying humans into space. And, we know all that. Now, the toy, though, the dinosaur, carries on a tradition of spaceships carrying plushies with them. Once the toy starts to float around, observers know the ship has left the pull of Earth's gravity. That's why they're called zero-gravity indicators. About 10 minutes after launch, the plushie appeared in NASA's live feed of the Crew Dragon, where it was floating around the cabin of the spaceship and drifted towards Benken, and he pushed it aside. Looks like we saw our zero-G indicator floating around here, a NASA commentator said as the dinosaur appeared. I know Bob and Doug owe us a little bit about what exactly that is that they brought up with them. It was unclear who picked out the dinosaur when they chose it or whether it has a name. Observers first spotted the dinosaur in NASA's live feed launch in preparations when the rocket was first scheduled to lift off and then delayed due to poor weather. It's actually kind of cool. When the Crew Dragon made its first test flight to the International Space Station with no astronauts on board, it carried a plushie Earth named Buddy. The toy later sold out in stores. However, TY no longer manufactures the Tremor dinosaur. It is out of stock. You imagine what the Tremor dinosaur is going to go for on eBay these days? Thousands. Apparently the toy was chosen by selection by the kids of the astronauts, which is really, really cool. The mystery surrounding the Oumuamua seems to be getting a little bit weirder. A new study, which has not yet been peer-reviewed, suggests the interstellar object could have been made of hydrogen ice. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, but it's rarely observed in solid form. We developed a theory that explains all of Oumuamua's weird properties, said co-author Gregory Laughlin, a professor of astronomy at Yale's Faculty of Arts and Sciences, in a statement. We show that it was likely composed of hydrogen ice. This is a new type of object, but it looks like there may be many more of them showing up in the future. The cigar-shaped Oumuamua was first discovered in October 2017, is unlike anything researchers have ever seen before due to its shape, as well as its dry surface. The research notes that hydrogen ice, which needs to be extremely cold temperatures, is something that is present in the cores of molecular clouds. Molecular clouds, as Dave puts on his glasses here and shoves them up a little bit, molecular clouds form the basis of stars, and the researchers believe Oumuamua could contain hydrogen ice after it passed by one of these molecular clouds deep in space. Where is the aliens here? Look, the dude from Harvard was saying this is alien. This could be a spaceship. And now we're getting into hydrogen ice? Come on. You're breaking our hearts here, Yale. The fellow Ivy Leaguers think it's an alien, and you're going with ice. This is terrible. Anyways, the 900-foot-long cigar-shaped Oumuamua has led some research to believe it could be an alien probe. Here we go. Yes, a study published in the November 2018 from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics suggests it could have been a light sail of artificial origin sent from another civilization. Of course it's aliens, Yale. Come on. Yeah. The researchers who discovered Oumuamua, Canadian physicist and astronomer Robert Warwick, good Canadian kid, probably likes hockey, said the idea was from another civilization was just wild speculation. No longer observable by telescopes as of January 2018, many have speculated what Oumuamua is. In addition to a light sail theory, some believe it's a comet or an asteroid. No, we at Spaced Out Radio have deemed it aliens, 100%. It took 8 years, but a Toronto man finally received an expedited package from Canada Post. Elliot Bernstein posted on Reddit this week that he received a package from well.ca back on May 6th. He didn't recall ordering anything recently from the pharmacy, so he was quite surprised to find a tube of hair cream that he ordered 8 years ago with an invoice signed by Jen thanking him for his order. Upon opening the package, I realized it was a tube of Brill cream I had ordered in 2012. How old is this guy? Berenstein still using Brill cream? I bet you he has a leather jacket to look like the Fonz as well. Anyways, the contents of the tube is yellow, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be white. My theory, he says, is that it was sitting at Canada Post, and they finally decided to deliver it after 8 years. I do not blame Jen for this. Bernstein, a 29-year-old resident physician, said he started laughing when he realized what had happened. I quickly realized it was an order I'd placed back in 2012 that I never got. He had been living in Ottawa when he placed his order, but the hair cream never arrived to the address. So Well.ca said they would ship the product again to his Toronto home when he thought he might be easier. When it didn't arrive again at that address, he gave up. I mean, could you not just walk to the drugstore and pick up some Brill cream? PharmaSafe has it. London Drugs. I think it's probably got misplaced, maybe in one of the mailing sorting rooms. It was way off to the side. No one ever looked for it. Maybe they are trying to reorganize things with the whole COVID pandemic, and someone finally saw it. He also didn't follow up with Canada Post to see what happened, given their hair cream was only $5 and he was testing out different products at the time. Canada Post said it's investigating this unique situation. We can only speculate at this point as to what may have happened, the Postal Service says. Well.ca confirmed its customer care center shipped the package 8 years ago. Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Brill cream. Who the hell orders Brill cream from an online store? You can get it everywhere. Just go under your car where it's dripping oil. It's the same thing. Go to your shocks, grab some grease. Do the same thing. I don't get that. I don't get that. Where do you go from here? Bulgarian-born artist Christo, best known for wrapping buildings and famous landmarks in fabric or plastic, has died at his home in New York at age 84. He passed away of natural causes this past weekend, according to a statement placed on his Facebook page. Christo, who has always worked with his wife Jean-Claude, famously covered the Reichstag in Berlin and Pont Neuf in Paris with reams of cloth. His artworks brought people together around the world, a statement said. Christo lived his life to the fullest, not only dreaming up of what seemed impossible, but realizing it. It reads, adding that the couple's art lives on in the hearts and memories. Let's move on here. A Virginia brewery announced it is seeking a chief hiking officer who would be paid $20,000 to spend 5 to 7 months hiking the Appalachian Trail and drinking beer. By God, where do we sign up for this? Probably one of those American things that us Canadians are going to get screwed over. The Devil's Backbone Brewing Company, based in Lexington, said it is accepting applications for people to love hiking and beer to take this unique job. The winning applicant will be granted the Chief Hiking Officer title and will be flown out to the trailhead in 2021 for a 2,200-mile hike. The hiker, who would have to tackle the trail between May and September, would be outfitted with equipment by the brewery, as well as being treated to some big old beer parties along the way. The application on the company's website consists of some personal information, proof of social media or blogging savvy, and a video explaining why the applicant should receive the position. Hi, I'm Dave. I run a radio show. It is about UFOs, ghosts, and Bigfoot, and Dogman, and goblins that run along the Appalachian Trail. I think I would be absolutely perfect for this position because apparently I do not have a face for radio on YouTube, according to my audience. Therefore, I think we should drink some beer, we should party, bring Sasquatch out, and if Dogman comes around, guess what? He can party with us too. We'll throw him a second one. Keep tennis balls close by just in case he starts to act up. Thank you. There's my resume right there. I want to do this. I would so get into shape this way. And finally tonight, a Florida couple who heard knocking at their front door and looked outside to find a pair of unwelcome visitors hanging on out. Yeah, Two alligators decided to drop the gloves and fight right on their stoop. Sue Geschel said she was at home with her husband Joe in Fort Myers when they heard this banging at the door. They went and looked outside, and there were the gators fighting away. I thought he was joking because we had so much to do and so much on our mind. I thought he was going crazy, Sue says. All of a sudden, there's a loud pounding, and that's when I got involved because it sounded like someone was pounding on the front door and needed help. Geschel said she was shocked to see her husband was correct. Two alligators going at it, fighting for territory. Geschel recorded the footage of the gators as they did battle right outside the door. She said the reptiles left on their own after about 20 minutes. No clear winner was called. Considered a draw at the front door. Stoop. Who uses the word stoop anymore? Nice clown tonight, Marty. Appreciate that, buddy. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time as we, post a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages and read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What do you think aliens are thinking when they look down at us right now? Marty, our estimates were incorrect. No signs of intelligent life anywhere on this planet. Derek, hey, what you up to? Nathan, how do some humans not see how they are being manipulated so badly by other humans? Canadian Joe, let's just go to the next planet. All right. Joe, if they are benevolent, they are thinking, they're not ready for us yet. If they are malevolent, they are thinking, we do not need to do anything but wait. They will destroy themselves. Alcatraz Juan, hold my beer and watch this. Julianne, they don't think nothing. They know what is happening. Bossy Brooke, I knew I should have thrown out that recipe. Andre, we look like a primitive, warring civilization whose primary focus is warfare against each other. We use 2 nuclear bombs on our own population. They don't know the difference between the country. All they know is that we're fighting and blowing things up. Oh, we're very dangerous people. The word, they are lost. Victoria, when will humans ever learn? Save the planet. Lower level thinking. Ford Nation, they're thinking, how did that mouse get on SpaceX's rocket? Don't know what I'm talking about? Check the retweets. All right. William, how petty, racist, warlike, self-destructive, and unintelligent we generally are, with some noteworthy exceptions. Wayne, Earth? It's the armpit of the solar system. Let's not go there. Bernadette, travel restrictions to our world. Take that crap elsewhere. Linda, I have always suspected that they have us in a galactic quarantine. Agree with you all. James, perhaps, thank God, we haven't been ordered to colonize. Bobby, let's prepare for the invasion. Lou, we've seen this before. Lauren, what an unintelligent planet of life forms. JJ, the savages are restless again. Sylvia, there's so much chaos, they won't even know we landed. Grant gets the final word tonight. Don't make eye contact. That's the thought of the Dave today. We'll do it all again on Facebook and Twitter tomorrow, so make sure you play along with us. Big thank you to Captain Shirk for putting together a fabulous and exquisite SOR Newswire, which can be found on our website and on our Facebook page, the SOR Newswire. So make sure you go check that out. Give a little clap for Captain Shirk as well. Big thanks to Grant Cameron for coming on in, talking some UFOs. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody participating in our chat rooms on Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club on our website, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. The Snarkers and Snarkettes, you were absolutely perfect tonight. I appreciate it. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a great night, everybody. Remember, the Woo train may have stopped and docked for the night, but your seat is always available. Your ticket never expires, and the Woo train will run again tomorrow. Make sure you're ready, because we will be waiting for you. Have a great night. That's a good show, everybody. That's a good show. Give yourselves a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause. You deserve that. That's good stuff, everyone. Thanks. I'm done. Yeah, you guys did well tonight. Just letting it be known. Oh, man. That's good stuff. Even my hair was flickering nice there. Even my hair was looking good tonight. We own the night. Watching for so long. Wait for you to fall. Well, I know you out there somewhere. Watching me. Come on, give yourself a little bit better of a round of applause than that, people. Geraldine Orozco, by the way, tomorrow night. The spiritual you. There we go. Let's view this episode. And we are downloading. All right, I'll be right back. I am going to run my dogs out while this is downloading. Don't go anywhere. I know there's like 110 of you. Oh, thank goodness my headache's almost gone. All right. Let's cut this bad boy up, shall we? Let's do that. What's the date today? June 1, Grant Cameron. And this is June 1, KZAX. All right. I think I'm ready. How we all doing? That was a great show tonight. I ran out of time, Lisa. That's the main reason why. Sometimes I don't have enough time after the news to get to them all, so I apologize. I tried to, but I was literally out of time. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Forgive me. And let's amplify this a little bit, shall we? 111 is definitely a palindrome. I love palindromes, by the way. Perfect. There we go. How's peanut butter rolls tonight? Hey, if you're still watching and you haven't come into our chat room to say hello yet, I would love it if you did. Come say hello. We'd greatly appreciate that. I want to be able to say hi back to you. Oh, for God's sakes, what are we doing here? Copy, paste. There we go. So if you're kind of new to the show, we appreciate you tuning us in for the first time. We do. We kind of like you. Thank you for doing that. I'm trying to wean myself off the Pepsis. I know. I drink a lot of Pepsi. Way too much Pepsi. And I just have trying to improve the old health a little bit here coming up. So I decided that I would try and give up on the Pepsi a little bit. It was getting a little out of hand. I mean, I love my Pepsi. Don't kid yourself for a second. Hi, Eva. Welcome, newbie. Hi, Nathan. No, I just want to get a little bit healthier. You know what, to be honest with you, is over the last few weeks, my body has been aching. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm working outside or mowing my lawn or just sleeping at night, my body is aching. And I'm not used to that. So I decided, you know what? I've had enough of this whole aching thing. And I just want to get feeling a little bit better. And I know if I lose some weight, that my body will feel better, because my body is probably sore because I'm carrying too much weight. So I decided I'm going to try and do something about it. And so the first thing I got to cut out is the Pepsis. And that's a real big addiction for me. A real big addiction. And so that is what I'm trying to do right now. So that's why you saw me actually drinking water tonight. Because I'm trying. Trying, man. Hey, it's all one day at a time here. Sweet Jesus. Yeah, Dave doesn't do fish oils. So, yeah. Yeah, what are we doing here? Yeah, we gotta save this. Oh, I love the Pepsi. Don't get me wrong. I love my Pepsi. But I also know right now that it is a weakness of mine because I don't drink coffee. And what my brain has told my body is that I kind of need this to keep going. It's like my sugar rush, my caffeine rush. Well, the problem is the side effects of all of that. Yeah, it hasn't been quite pretty, so. Oh, Grandma Rose will have some, have to get used to the fact that I'd like to, I'm not putting a number on how much weight I want to lose. I just want to feel better. That's all. You know, honestly, that's all. Like doing this double shift, like, dude, I literally work about 15 hours a day, 16 hours a day, and it's tiring. It is really, really tiring. And I'm not making excuses because that's what I've chosen to do and everything like that. So, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not getting any younger. I'm still beautiful, still very beautiful. But I'm not getting any younger, and I just need to make sure that I'm doing things a little bit better than what I should be right now, because I'll be honest with you, I feel like shit. I do. I feel terrible. I just want to feel good again. So that's what I'm doing. So, one step at a time. All right. Oh, thank you, fitness gals. Yeah, so I'm just doing a little bit of self-improvement here, and hopefully I have the strength to make it last. I hope I do, because that would be kind of cool if I did. All right. It's that time of the night, people, where we have to... Where the hell is my audio? Oh, right there. We have to pick our 6-digit... we have to pick our 6-digit code tonight. Show me your 6 digits. What is your choice of the 6-digit code? Our verification code is... The hell is all this mailer daemon stuff? Oh, weird. (087-335). (087-335). Uh-oh, that code is wrong or expired. What do you want to... Did I say it wrong? 355. Never mind. 355. (087-355). Not 335. And we're transferring. It's only 5 digits, Devin. Man alive. Here we go. We're downloading, man. We are officially downloading. Let me see here. What do we got going on Twitter? Hi, Eva. Hi, Derek. Hi, Moonstone. Hi, Brutus. Excuse me. Yeah, Spookles, I'll give you a call tomorrow about that. I will call you tomorrow. Did you know that when you cover your mouth when you yawn so demons won't answer me, because it was considered a vulnerable moment? No, I did not know that. And I just didn't, reading the word yawn, it made me yawn. Have I heard of the keto diet? Yeah, a friend of mine just lost like 60 pounds on that. He's looking good too. Sparkles the cat. Excuse me. I don't drink beer. That's the problem. Apparently my yawn made Nicole yawn. And now I'm going to yawn because Nicole was talking about yawning, and I'm not the prettiest of yawners. Apparently I need a woo slap, according to Nicole. She's just jealous of my hair. I am on the Samantha Mowat diet. She's vegan. She's vegan. What else is happening? It's like I'm talking to myself here. Talking to myself tonight. Steam train. Hey, Dave. Have you listened to the interview that Eric Davis gave with Open Minds a year ago when he talks about a crash retrieval program? No, I have not. I have not. I like to hear about Samantha Mowat's diet. Have you considered that, Dave? I know Samantha will be coming on sometime in July. Yeah, Samantha will be coming on in July. All right, Jules. Stay beautiful. Sleep well. Moonstone, what is work? What is work? Well, of course, Wilson's going to deny everything, man. It's a matter of national security. Oh, no, I will never go vegan. Never go vegan. You kidding me? Do I look like I would go vegan? No way, man. Dave is an omnivore. I will go to sleep here in a few minutes. Just finishing the downloads. What is my favorite cheese? Good question. Swiss cheese, number 1. Number 2 would be a nice brie cheese. That would be number 2. Bocconcini would be 3rd. Probably my top 3. I really like cheese. I'm a cheese guy. Dave doesn't eat fish. No, I do not eat fish. Oh, yeah, you're exactly right, Fap. Fap says, Dave looks like a guy that you'd have to hide the livestock for when he visits your farm. Absolutely, because I'm coming with a fork and knife. Except lambs. Not interested in lambs, not interested in veal or baby animals. No. But pigs? Oh, yeah. Let's have a pig roast. For sure. Get those lights replaced. Oh, I haven't had a good pulled pork sandwich in a long time. Asiago cheese is good too. What the hell is veggie cheese? There should never be a thing. All right, let's see if that one made it. We're good on the one. Bingo. And where are we on the other? Oh, we're done there too. And let's email this off. Well, people, it's that time of the night where I'm going to go to bed because I have another long day tomorrow. And my boss is away tomorrow, so I have to one second. So I'm going to hit the bed here and, go off to La La Land, and hopefully my body stops hurting. But that's okay. We'll get her done. We'll get her done. But thank you for dropping on in. Thank you for everybody on the, what the hell are those things called? The super chats again. Much love. Appreciate it. And we get to do it all again tomorrow. So we'll talk to you soon. In